And a great Sunday evening to all of you joining us here on the Marcia Week Show. A pleasure to have you back with us again, and an honor for me to be your co-host tonight. I have a little bit of surprise for you, so you better share because you're going to be in for a very pleasant surprise tonight as to who's going to be hosting the program. I am not. I'm co-hosting tonight. All right. But it's a pleasure for me to have the opportunity to be back with you again tonight. We're looking forward to a great, great show as always. We're going to be addressing a number of matters tonight. We're going to be taking a look at some of the comments coming out of the Barbados Labour Party conference over the weekend. We're going to be taking a look at some of the matters to do with the schools and education. These are some of the hot topics, you can say, that we are engaging over the last several weeks, several months, and indeed continue to garnish our attention. So we're certainly looking forward to a great show. We're going to have a great lineup of panelists tonight to be sharing with you. But I want to welcome all of you to the show tonight. Tony, great to have you with us this evening. Patrick Designs, thank you. Blessed Sunday evening to you as well. And we do appreciate your greetings. Jefferson Sobers, good night to you as well. And Sir Alfred Benjamin, so good to see you back with us again. Excuse me. My apologies. I always look forward to seeing you on the show, sir. Mac Boland, good night to you. Great to have you with us this evening. Flo Joe Maloney, great again for you to be joining us. Of course, I see my co-fighter, Marcia, there to keep me on my P's and Q's, on my toes. Thank you, Marcia. Great to see you. They love 3 Pineapple 246. Great Sunday to you too. Nice to have you with us this evening. Patrick Designs, yes, absolutely great to have you. Jefferson Sobers, real pleasure to have you with us tonight. Tony Paris, Matthew Brown, good evening to you. And my pleasure to be with you tonight. As you know, Marcia is traveling and addressing a number of very serious issues on an international level, and we're going to come to some of the matters to do with the international aspect of things. Some comments that were made concerning Barbados being an international leader. I don't think so. I think Mia Mottley is an international figure. Barbados is not. That doesn't translate, but we'll come to that during the show. I'm sure tonight they'll be able to make some comments with regards to that. So we are so grateful to have you joining us. Share and share and share. Thank you. I see Tony there, right there, telling us like and share, brothers and sisters, co-laborers together in this fight for the country of Barbados. Lucinda Aline, yes, thank you so much. Like and share. Good night, Cynthia Thorpe, to you, and Sandra Watkins. Good night to you as well. Um, Yes, it was. It was. I get into that. I get that so much, Sandra. I was telling my wife yesterday, I was in the supermarket, and so many people were just walking by me. The Marcia Week show. Good evening, Dr. Ferdinand, and people I don't know, and I'm so happy to be able to be a part of bringing the truth to you, and trying to bring some semblance of sanity in the midst of the madness that our country is experiencing at the moment. And I thank God that He has not given up on this great nation. The Lord continues to be the people's guide. He was for the past 300 years. And in a few moments, Dave is going to let that national anthem of ours, that great national anthem, run so that we can respect our country and we can see movement toward a greater Barbados. All right, so we are really looking forward to sharing with you tonight. Of course, in just a few minutes, your host will be joining me in the segment tonight, and I'm looking forward to just sitting at the host's feet. I know you're all wondering who's this? Who's this new host? And I'm going to just leave you there, right on the edge of your seats, trying to figure that out. Okay, so, but I will tell you, it's a great, great host, absolutely great host. Of course, I'm not going to tell you if it's a she or a he, because if I tell you if it's a he, I know what you all will begin to think. If I tell you it's a she, I know what you begin to think. But one thing I can tell you is one of the two legitimate scientific biological genders. That I can tell you. And so we're looking forward to a great show tonight. So remember, those of you on YouTube as well, give us those thumbs up. You know, the more thumbs up we get in on YouTube, the more presence we will get on YouTube, the more visibility we will get on YouTube. Facebook, I believe, as well, if you share there. And so, you know, I want to encourage you to do your sharing and to your family, friends, you know, the diaspora. Good evening to you too, Easy D. A pleasure to have you back with us. You know, I have grown to appreciate every single one of you. I know we may not always agree on everything, but I thank God that we have developed the capability to disagree agreeably and to respect each other and to continue in that camaraderie that we have. That is a symbol of maturity, especially in the realm of politics. And, you know, I have grown increasingly sick of all the politics. I really, even if I was a member of the Barbados Labour Party, I don't even think I would have attended the conference this weekend, because I'm just tired of everything to do with politicians and political parties in the realm of them not looking after the interests of our country. Any political party that steps up to the plate to allow home drums to beat first, we are going to support. Don't start to talk to me about any other country before Barbados. That's one of the things that I agree with in the United States. America great again. You may like or not like the individual. I couldn't care less. That's not my issue. But the reality is that we need to put our country first. Even Jesus reflected on that when he said, "Love your neighbor as yourself." You got to put yourself first in these matters, so that you can appreciate what others are going to be engaging. So you can't possibly love me any more than you love yourself, right? So you got to start with you. And I have to start with me. And Anthony Oliver, great to have you joining us tonight from New York City as well. Well, we're up to 207, and I have always committed myself to getting the national anthem running as we clear that 200 mark. So, Dave, going to ask you to let that national anthem play for us as we respect the Republic of Barbados and we officially commence the Marcia Week show. Ladies and gentlemen, the national anthem of Barbados. Amen. Strict guardians of our heritage firm craftsmen of our faith. Oh, I tell you, I tell you. And now, ladies and gentlemen, our national pledge. I pledge allegiance to my country, Barbados, and to my flag, to uphold and defend their honor, and by my living to do credit to my nation wherever I go. I want you to hear that again. I pledge allegiance to my country, Barbados, and to my flag. I do not pledge allegiance to a single political party. I pledge allegiance to my country, Barbados, and to my flag, to uphold and defend their honor, and by my living to do credit to my nation wherever I go. And so that is what we are about on the Marcia Week Show. And I want to make it clear to some of those who would like to target Marcia that this is not about Marcia. This is about the citizens of Barbados. This is about our country, our nation. And she represents thousands of people out there who don't have a voice at this particular point in time. So just like a politician in parliament represents the constituents, 30, 40,000, however many there are in a constituency, so too we represent thousands of people across the nation of Barbados and in the diaspora who are not comfortable, happy, satisfied, or pleased with the direction and the process of our country. And so that is what this program is about, a compendium. Dave spoke to me about it's a compendium. He told me, Dr. Nichols, it's a compendium. It's not just a show. All right. So we certainly are here to provide information. We are here to provide as truthful a view as we can. We are here to provide a transparency and accountability as to the best of our capacity and our ability. And that is something that we notice is absent in our country. So without any further ado, however, I am going to be bringing in our host for the show tonight. And it's a distinct pleasure. I'm just making sure that the individual is all ready. Remember, I told you I wasn't going to tell you who the individual is going to be. You don't know if it's going to be a male or female. I will tell you it's going to be one of the biological scientific genders. I am going to tell you that. But it's not anything else, not anyone else. All right. So I'll just wait to get that confirmation as soon as our host is ready, and I will bring our host in. So, ladies and gentlemen, join me as we welcome our host for tonight's show, Madam Maxine McLean.
Hey,
Madam Maxine.
thank you very much. And after doing that, I hope I will not disappoint anybody. As you know, Pastor Ferdinand, we are a team, and when Marcia is not here, you tend to hold the fort. But we need to share that responsibility.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
I,
There's no
I
I in team.
Precisely. So I am
Yes.
here with you to support you. And let me start by, before we get into the program, because I think we have a pretty packed program.
Yes.
I spent the weekend, the last from Thursday, being involved with the several activities at the KFL campus. This was
Yes.
graduation.
Yes.
And for those who don't know, and this is a little promo too for the alumni of the university. I'm the president of the Barbados chapter of the UWI Alumni Association, and so I was representing the executive, and I want very quickly to thank and to congratulate rather all of those persons who graduated. We know we saw some distinguished honorary graduates receive honorary doctorates. But I in the last few weeks having these activities, I started to reflect, and I realized I've had a 50-year relationship with the University of the West Indies.
Wow. Wow.
It
That
was
is commitment. My goodness.
it was in 1974 that I became a student. And so yesterday, as I sat at the second graduation, there are two people I will call, as I congratulated all of those. But it was indeed a pleasure to watch, and I will give her proper title, Senator Dr. Crystal Drakes, receive her PhD.
Wow.
You know,
Congratulations. Yeah.
many of us would listen to her presentations in the Senate, and they're usually brilliant. But I think she's demonstrated that brilliance by completing the rigors of undertaking doctoral studies. And so I really congratulate her. And then, remembering what I said about 50 years, I also saw one of my former students, Dr. Diana. I think she's Marshall. She was Weeks as a student, if I remember correctly, Dr. Diana Weeks Marshall. Sorry, Easy D. You wouldn't see me do that. I will tell you this. I have been into the precincts of the Barbados Labour Party once, and that was when I was a member of the Parliamentary Reform Commission. And I was there with the commission to hear from spokespersons for the party. But in all seriousness,
Yeah.
I really was very proud to see, the many people. Thank you very much, Speaker, because at the end of the day, and you can time me when it's time, because I have to pull up my schedule, because I it's really been hectic, but I am, as I said, it's very productive activity. And then I saw generations, and notice what I said, generations
Yes.
of
Yes.
persons who would have passed through my hands. On Friday, I was reminded by the Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences that he was in one of my classes. He's an economist. So why I wouldn't remember him necessarily in class was because he would have been in one of those classes where I probably had over 200 students. So, but it really was a pleasure. And something that I may come around to talk to later, we talked about entrepreneurship. And in listening to the speech of Dr. Rav Taylor, he was one of the honorary graduates on Friday night. He spoke and he was talking about the importance of entrepreneurship. And you know what that did, Ferdinand? It took me back. I introduced entrepreneurship as a course at the university. So I don't want to say anything
Wow.
else about me, but I've really been reflecting on a lot of these first. I was one of the first students in the Faculty of Social Sciences back 50 years ago, um,
Wow.
teaching in new departments and the new Department of Management Studies and all of these things. And when you see that the Department of Management Studies is not the Department of Management, the Faculty of Social Sciences next year will celebrate 50 years, but I started in another faculty before that was created and then transferred. So I really want to congratulate those persons, but I want to say this before we move on, and to invite all of those people who have completed the task of studying for the bachelor's, master's, or the postgraduate diplomas, PhDs, etc. Remember that you have accomplished on the shoulders of your family who supported you, your friends, your teachers, your fellow students. Some of them might not have been as good as you. And what I want to see is that they will give back. So that was my introduction, and perhaps let me, as you probably are the timekeeper, let me pull up my time.
Well,
Um,
let me say, Maxine, how well you wear the years. I to be honest with you, I don't recall ever seeing you look any different from the time I knew you. As you have worn those years very well, and what it says to me is how much you've enjoyed your time doing
yeah,
what you do.
but
That
that
that shows.
I appreciate that. In fact, I run into lots of my former students. In fact, if you look across the faculty, and across the campus now, because I was also reminded by the deputy principal that he was my student. Similarly, he was the economics Dr. Justin Robinson, Professor Robinson, who is now principal of the Five Islands campus, was a student of mine in his final year in one course that he had to do with me as a compulsory course in strategic management. And so, but I tell them teachers no age. But I also have to thank my mother and father for the genes, because I told somebody that when I look at my hair on these shows, it looks as though I put some color into it. But I will tell you, and I can't lie to you as a man of God, I don't. And that is something I inherited from my mother. When she left us in her mid to late, almost late 70s, her hair wasn't much different from mine. So maybe, you
Yeah,
know, uh,
I think it's Les Brown that said something about the grace of dye.
okay.
He was talking about the aging. His hair wasn't going gray, and people were wondering, and he said, "No, it's just the grace of dye." And so, well,
But there is our recently
yes,
graduated Senator Dr. Crystal Drakes, and I really, had to send her a note of congratulations because, yeah. The other thing, and I'll say this quickly, one thing that I was dismayed about, and it is not new to me because I can tell you I have memories of the first class I taught, and in that class, um, there were 96 students. I remember the number. I remember because the circumstances were, I was asked to complete. At that time, you had the academic year, not the semester system. And there was a problem. I'd just come back from graduate school and I was asked to do this course. And back then, the numbers of men in classes were less than females. But as I sat yesterday, I deliberately applauded every male that walked across that platform.
wonderful,
There were
wonderful.
so few. And what it says for me, and that is true, Sharon. I stopped teaching when it was no longer, after I felt that it was becoming a chore. Let me put it there, teaching full time at least. When I reached the point where, because I went to the university to teach for 1 year, one semester, and ended up spending 17 and a half years, 17 additional years. But enough about me. Back to the situation. I am concerned when I look around, and as I said, it is not new, but it seems to be coming to have become even more obvious that we are not seeing our young men in anywhere near the same numbers as the females. Now, that is a problem by itself. The question would be, where do our young males want to be? What do they want to do on completion of secondary school? And are we offering them the opportunities? And I know, for example, I put on the other hat that I wore in more recent times, and that was as a member cabinet, that there were plans, and I know some of it had been done, to expand the offerings and so on, and the enrollment at the then Samuel Jackman Prescott Polytechnic. And it is important that we look to see what the options are and what young people have, what our young men want to do, because some of the offerings at the university they may not be what they want. My concern is, if our system of post-secondary education, our system of tertiary and technical education as part of that tertiary education, is not providing adequately for what our young men want, then um, it is important. It's a problem if you're not doing it, and it is therefore essential that we look to do that. Because somebody the other day, you get all these, and you might have seen it circulating, where somebody listed all of the top positions in the country, starting with the president and coming down, looking in the public service. And the reality is that if our educational system at the university, and I singled out the university as part of that tertiary education, if that is catering or generating more female graduates, then automatically you will see them moving into those critical positions, because at the end of the day, we cannot pretend away the fact that they're the ones who are getting. I mean, there was a time when the accounting profession was mainly males. And
Yes.
then I can tell you that with the introduction of a BSc in accounting at the Cave Hill campus, two things happened. One, more Barbadians then were able to access professional accounting because the degree allowed you then to go on. And then the second thing was that because you were able at the university level to pursue a bachelor BSc in accounting, clearly with more women were becoming accountants, because once they had the degree, then they went on to do the professional examinations and so on. So I really think that, and I throw out this challenge to males at all ages, particularly those people who have completed their tertiary, their secondary education, etc. Try to work closely with our boys to ensure that they're self-actualize. And when I say that, I'm saying get them to do what they desire, to achieve. Let them realize their dreams. And it is not necessarily a university degree, but they need to be able to take full advantage. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Well, Marcia, hear me, Marcia, Maxine.
I have a sister called Marcia, lives in Canada. Mm.
you know, um, I can't help but agree with you within the sense that our men, I think at the end of the day, they're looking for professions that they think are going to make a lot of money. Because they see themselves more often than not, at least from my view, I see the man as the head of the household and the primary earner for the sustenance
That
and
should
maintenance
ideally
of the.
be, well, it should not.
It,
Put it this way, that is how it should be.
that's how it. Yes, ideally,
Yeah.
ideally, but of course, um, the availability of professions now, because I remember at one time I thought to myself, how many lawyers are we going to have? I mean, we're only 166 square miles, and it seemed that everybody going into into CAFL at the time were doing law, and it seemed that the majority of the people who are coming out of the university are legally minded individuals. And I was just wondering, where are we going to get jobs for all these lawyers? Because to my mind, not only do we have to look at how we do the educational system, but we have to look at the provision of job opportunities in the country, where one or two particular professions are not so glutted with entities. It's the inevitable situation where you have so many people to divide the cake between that nobody gets a proper slice, so to speak. And I don't know that we have really paid serious attention down through the years to the expansion of job opportunities. And I'm not just talking about weeding grass on the side of the road or anything like that. I'm talking about jobs that people can see themselves committed to in the future, from a professional standpoint, from a standpoint of stable income, that they can support their families, a job that they feel proud about.
Mhm.
When you step into an environment as an accountant, oh yeah, we know, that's a very respected area. And this probably could be one of the challenges that men themselves are facing, because it doesn't seem that the job provisions out there, at least in the country, I'm speaking particularly within the confines of the 166 square miles, are there. I do remember, Maxine, during one general election, I don't recall which one it was, but Arthur had a meeting with the young people at St. Michael's School. And the one thing I remember him saying to them was, don't limit your job opportunities to Barbados, because you remember he had actually worked in Jamaica,
Mhm.
and others. We have our president, for that matter. I think she was in Belize at one time, and a couple other countries in the Caribbean and a couple other places. But he made that statement, and I thought, that was a that was a good expression to make to young people. But the challenge now becomes the ease of the movement within CARICOM, so that we can go from Barbados to St. Vincent and work without any issues, all the red tape that we have to go through and all of that. Just like how an American could go from Florida to North Carolina and work, that type of thing. So I believe there needs to be a bit of reset or adjustment where that type of thing is concerned.
The reality is, and you're talking about free movement, but again, and I'm going to try and comment on the last three, and I'll start with this. I'll comment about what you said, and then I'll look at Simone Danielle 17's comment and the previous two after, after that came before that. Barbados, certainly when you look at the Eastern Caribbean, OECS, for example, that collection of items, probably with the exception of Guyana right now because of the implications of their significant oil finds and the technical nature. I mean, for example, many Trinidadians who worked in the oil sector can move readily, to work in Guyana and so on. The reality is that in the same way that Barbados seems unable to generate sufficient jobs, and the point that was made that you're graduating from the university and the question is what happens after.
Yes.
And this is something because recently, as I said, based on my involvement with the Alumni Association, I was raising with some of the members there the need to do an ongoing tracer study, information collection on what happens to the graduates. How long are they taking to find jobs? Now, and the other thing is, even there's the issue here that Anderson Downs raised in relation to the numbers, and he's probably correct. He's probably correct. It might be and certainly in the social sciences, you will see this. Now, I went to the second graduation, which is the Faculty of Social Sciences. I would call that my faculty. And they have the biggest number of graduates. You'd find of that, the biggest number are in management studies. And the issue really and truly is that where do they go to work after? You have a lot of persons. If you go around the civil service tomorrow, I can tell you that you will find that there are a lot of persons in clerical positions, entry level type, and maybe one tier up who have first degrees, and some of them have masters because, but the question is how do we as a country and a society utilize those competencies, that knowledge that those people have acquired. And that brings me to what Tamika is here saying is the reality is around the world. If you go to North America, the percentages may be different, but the reality is that you have generally in this part of the hemisphere and so on, more women are going to the university than men. But the question is, as I said before, where are the men? And if the men are opting for other things, that's fine. But if they are opting out because they cannot find what they want, or they're not competitive because they didn't, the criteria to get into certain programs, they don't meet. But this is an important one. And in fact, it brings me, and I'll talk about Zaire's comment in a minute. She's saying that a bone of contention is our young people excel in academia and no jobs to place them in. How do we remedy this situation? Now, that brings me to something that I had mentioned to you, Ferdy, that if I may call you that.
Yes, just like Ralph.
All right. So this brings me to this whole issue of the talk about entrepreneurship and investment.
Yes.
And I listened to Brass Tacks a little bit today, heard a bit of that. But as I mentioned to you, this whole issue of entrepreneurship, and I feel a little uncomfortable talking about me and but I can only share my experience. It so happens that I have been actively involved in the startup of almost everyone, if not all of the entrepreneurial type programs. At the university, I taught the first course, and I taught it maybe for about 10 plus years in entrepreneurship. We used to call it new venture management back then. The youth entrepreneurship scheme, before they had that, when David Thompson was Minister of Community Development, just before the government change in the early 90s, he had a program called Youth in Business. I chaired that. And then when they moved to the youth entrepreneurship scheme in its formative years, I would have helped do that. And I taught many courses in that. on many occasions. And then we had the Youth Business Trust. And the last thing that I was able to do, and I was reminded about that um, by Sir Hilary Beckles on Friday night, on when there was a discussion about entrepreneurship, when as I said, Dr. Ralph Taylor would have been speaking. He spoke on behalf of his fellow honorary graduates, and he talked about the importance of entrepreneurship and made some suggestions. And a lot of what he said was something that the university had in train. I recall there's a program on campus, it still exists, called SEED. It's a student entrepreneurship program. And the idea there was that you wanted to encourage students, especially those who were outside of management and exposed to entrepreneurship and so on, people in the sciences, to think about how they could transfer their knowledge and training into entrepreneurial ventures. And so the truth is, we need to have and I try to avoid buzzwords, because some words become very popular and thing, but and so when I hear them, sometimes I hesitate to use them, but I use them. Ecosystems. People nowadays don't talk about the environment or the arrangements to support entrepreneurship. We don't talk about an ecosystem, what we really need to do is to examine what we have in place. As I said, we go back, the youth entrepreneurship scheme goes back to the early 90s. So I remember writing a paper about that when it was celebrating its 20th anniversary. We have youth business, we have the youth, fund access. We have a new program where people are, they were given small grants. Now, the thing is, if we have to look and see to what extent have we been able to support different types of new businesses. And I distinguish between a small business and an entrepreneurial business, because you may be doing something that's repetitive and so on. And for me, entrepreneurship talks about innovation, but I don't want to get technical. So we can use it in a very generic, broad sense, or we can refine it to look at certain kinds of ventures which have, potential for growth in a way that some of the others. So in other words, if I and I'm not minimizing anybody's efforts to be self-employed and to own their own business, but a person who is a nail technician, for example, that's an opportunity for a young individual to operate his or her business and do that in a way that they can probably make a living. They may make a living that is slightly more than they might have been working, in a job which didn't require a lot of technical skills, etc. But that business has to be supported by some other kinds of businesses which can create job opportunities. And I'll give you an example, because these are things that I dealt with and have been dealing with some of them subsequently. I can give you two examples. I know of two Barbadians, one deceased, and I think his area was, they're both science students. In the day, he was a professor when he left us, unfortunately, about 2012. He would have patented a whole set of things, and wanted to create business opportunities in Barbados. Now, that kind of business that he would have contemplated, and I will say that his wife is still interested, or was, when I last spoke to her, still interested in looking at those opportunities. But that business will need maybe a couple $1 million to get it, really up and running and all of these things. But of course, if it does get up and running, what it will do is it will probably create significant foreign exchange. It will create employment for certain technical, some of the same university graduates and some, etc. So the challenge really and truly is to recognize that if when we start to talk about policy and in relation to entrepreneurship, I think we need to be honest with ourselves and with our young people in particular to let them understand that certain kinds of businesses, I would call like lifestyle businesses, will take you so far and no further. And from the perspective of the policymaker and the planner and so on, such businesses will probably do well only as same way they would only create so many jobs. They will probably um, maybe create one or two. Well, in terms of wealth, they will not necessarily make the business owner wealthy. So, so it is really about identifying what has to happen. The other thing quickly, because I think we have about 5 minutes before we go to the first guest, if I'm correct,
Yeah, just about 5 minutes. Yeah.
is that we have, I heard the Prime Minister make a reference to Barbadians needing to invest.
If I could cross you once,
Go ahead.
Max,
No,
it was
go ahead.
just I
There's
was
a conversation.
yeah, I was just about actually because I started to write. I was just about to raise that aspect with you. I wrote down here, how about teaching investment principles from a young age, secondary school? Because I had a conversation with a bank manager, ex-bank manager, just yesterday, and one of the things he was pointing out is that Barbadians know little, if nothing, about investment. They know about working, and you mentioned about people coming out of university with a degree. I know many of them who are working in banks and whatnot, no degree relative to the bank at all. They're just working to make money to pay bills and so forth. That's the extent to which their degree, the aspect of their degree, nothing to do with their job. And he was saying to me, that we need to start training and teaching our young people the aspect of investment. So I'm glad that you're going to touch on this before you leave us.
Let me speak to that very quickly. And I think I might have shared my thoughts on that before. I believe that what we have to do, we have to embed, I call it embedding these principles in our existing curriculum. And I'll give you an example. Children at primary school do composition, they do comprehension, and they do in the arithmetic, mathematics, or whatever. For example, if you show children how to calculate interest, but if you do it in an abstract way, right,
Yes, yes.
then that does not help. But if I'm telling a child, okay, your daddy and mommy want to start up a business, or your uncle or your big brother wants to start a business, but in order to start this business, you have to save, and this is what happens if you start saving. So in essence, it is about, and this is an opportunity for the entrepreneur now, for people in
Mhm.
education, to develop teaching materials that allow you to embed those concepts. And it also would probably make teaching certain subjects um, more fun. I
Mhm.
remember my son when he was a year. Actually, today is my son's birthday.
Oh dear.
Um,
Well, happy birthday to him from the loyal opposition.
um,
Oh,
and it's also the anniversary of my credit union. See what a loyal credit unionist I was or
yes,
am.
yes.
Today's city of Bridgetown is 41 years. Um, but I was when he was small, my youngest brother joined him, gave him a birthday present at a year old. As of we have this savers young children's savings account. So he had one. And over the years, from the time he was at primary school and so on, I started to explain to him what that was about and how the money, would increase and so on. And then I also introduced him to things like government bonds, etc., from early. And as a young adult, he told me, Mom, I appreciated your taking the time to teach me about these things. And so I would say to the bank manager, identify some financial resources and I will find you some former students of mine
That's
who,
right.
who can design teaching materials
Hmm.
to embed them in courses, whether it is English, looking at the curriculum at primary school,
Hmm.
and then you take it through the secondary school. Because when you look at the curriculum, adding on new courses, first of all, the space to add on a new course, and then the or trying to teach it in a vacuum does not necessarily make it interesting. You actually can enhance the existing curriculum by doing that. um, and Jabard here is saying, and this is, I'll make this point and then I'll pause, because one of the things that the Prime Minister talked about encouraging risk takers. Yes, we have a very liquid banking system,
Hmm.
and yes, a lot of people are not risk takers. And again, I use myself as an example. It's best to talk about me because nobody can tell me I'm misleading anybody because I talk about me. I left the university. As I said, I went there for half a term, a half a academic year, ended up spending 17 more years. I left the university to open my own business. And this was my mother's reaction and other people, including some colleagues. Why are you leaving the university where, quote unquote, you are getting a decent pay to think about opening your own business and so on?
Yes, yes,
And so
true.
that's about, because for her, coming from a background where you did not have wealth, what you instilled in your children was a good education. And the corollary of that is get a good education, get a good job. Um, Once you get a good job, you get a good pay, you get a mortgage, buy a car, that and all the trimmings, and you're happy. And that was her question. One of my colleagues in the university system at the time said, "But you're leaving now that you have a mortgage." And I said, "But a mortgage is a lot of money, or a little bit, depending on how you look. Well, not a little bit, but it depends on how you look at it." And my response to my colleague was, if push come to shove, I can rent out my house. The house that I was born in is still there. My father lived in it. At that time, my mother had already passed. And so, so the thing about risk taking is so on, but there's a reason why people are averse to risk taking. Even though we have a lot of liquidity, we have to recognize that if you take your average credit union and you look at the average savings per member, it is not a lot of money, right? So you would have to find ways to allow people to pool their resources to minimize their risk and not utilize all their savings. So there needs to be some mechanisms by which people can pool their resources and achieve or at least to invest in things where they don't risk their life savings.
Hmm.
And there's a lot more I can say about that.
But
Um,
Maxine, that's one of the reasons, because some people may be wondering how come the show is captioned as something. Let me make sure I get it right. I created
was
it.
Barrow's prophecy
Was
true?
Barrow's prophecy true? And the reason I captioned that was because I heard a lot of what the Prime Minister had to say over the weekend, not particularly just within the context of the conference, but also within the context of the breaking of ground for a number of new developments over the last several days, and the whole aspect of her treating to Barbadians investing. Of course, I looked at the persons present at the breaking of the ground of the development at Roadview in
Mhm.
St. Peter, I believe it is, and I am not one to get into the matter of not class, color prejudice. It wearies me. I see a lot of Barbadians, but the reality is that we find very often certain caliber or certain type of Barbadians seem to be able to access the funding a lot easier than others, so they can pool their resources together. They can invest on projects that would have significant return to them. And one of the things I heard her speaking about was the aspect of international investment, overseas investment. And one can see that happening. I mean, if you look at, I pass a hotel almost daily, taking my grandson to school on the south coast where the old Caribbean Hotel used to be. That
Mm-hmm.
is, it casts such a horrific shadow over everything on that coast. You know, it's just a monstrosity to me.
I
And
am
sorry, yeah.
no, I will say I am happy you raised. I don't know if it is me, but I will. Let me see how the best way I can describe it. Every time I drive past that, first of all, when I look at it as I approach it, it looks like it is slanted,
Hmm.
right? And I know some engineers who are structural engineers, and I mean, I would not expect a building to be to fall down on me, but there's some. It just gives me a very uneasy feeling
Hmm.
whenever I pass, because and next time, because it is huge in relation to that space.
Yes, it
But
is.
as I approach it, as I say, the building looks like it looks like it is slanted, and I don't know. As I was pointing it out to somebody who was in my car. I had some friends visiting from overseas, and I was pointing it out to them, and I said, I don't know if it is just me, but maybe when they put the color on the gray concrete or whatever, but it just looks. I
It's a
don't know.
I call it a monstrosity.
It
You know,
scares. It just scares me. That's the
yeah,
best way
yeah.
to put it.
You know, it's like when you get to that part, all of a sudden, all of the beauty of Barbados's coastline disappears. And but anyhow, you know, but I'm just thinking that, you know, it's easy to talk about Barbadians investing and getting together and investing. But when I looked at the persons present at the groundbreaking of the project at Worldview, I saw people. I've known Bajurkum for many, 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 many years. He's worked hard. He's developed his business and so on. But he's had significant camaraderie from within his grouping. And one of the things that, and I think Nigel might be able to treat a bit to this when he comes in, but one of the things that we seem to be saddled with, Maxine, is the ability for our black business people and our black individuals, period. And I'm trying here to be very cautious because I
I
don't
will.
like venturing into the color issue. But it
Listen,
seems
there's
that,
absolutely no wrong in venturing into that. And I will say this. Sorry to jump
yeah,
in like
yeah.
this, but I am in the middle of doing some research, huh? And I have had reason to talk to black business people because I think that their histories, there are many of them whose histories need to be written, and it is important that that information is captured. And I have had some very concrete examples. Let me also say that I served on the board of two commercial banks in this country for an extended period in relation to one, in fact, taken together for an extended period, in excess of probably 15 years in total or more. And I would have seen situations where persons were able to access resources, and I can't speak to specifics because that would be
Yeah, that wouldn't be.
unprofessional
Yeah.
and unethical. But there's a lot to that. And one of the things that a businessman said to me recently and gave me concrete examples of situations where decisions were taken that were definitely detrimental to black businessmen who then were forced to make decisions, and as a result of that their ambitions, their intentions were frustrated, but at the end of the day they saw treatment given. Let's give an example. Suppose I had a piece of land, right, and I applied for town and country planning permission to develop this land, and it was turned down. First of all, they take forever to do the evaluation. And some of these decisions, suffice to say, are not taken by the technocrats in town planning. They go to higher levels. They go, and I can tell you, they go to prime ministers. Okay, they have gone to prime ministers in the past, and it still happens now. We have some changes in the rules, which we could talk to another time. And that person, out of frustration, sold the land because they could not get the project. And within a matter of weeks, barely making months, the person who bought it, who didn't look like him, who the only thing they had in common, they were Barbadians. The person was able to get, or the people who bought it were able to get permission to do something which he, it was not much different from what he wanted to do,
Hmm. Hmm.
you know.
But
And the person could quantify the amount of money that the persons who bought it were able to make because they were told, I mean, they were given permission to develop it where he was not given. So it is an issue. I mean, um, so it is an issue. So I think that if we want to talk about investment, we have to talk about the conditions. What happens when people take their proposals to people and discuss them, because you can't keep them to yourself. What happens to some ideas? What happens to frustrate you? Why is it that they end up turning up almost identical projects, or whatever the case may be? Um, um, it,
Well,
I'm
I think it's that kind of thing, Maxine, that discourages or and what's the word I'm looking for? Not desensitizes. The persons lose their interest in investment when they hear these stories on an
Yes,
ongoing basis.
yeah. They,
You know what I'm
they
saying?
become disinterested, they become
Yeah,
cynical.
yeah.
And you see, at the end of the day, and the other thing is, I mean, I hear, and it's, you see, as I tell, I've been around this business for a long time. I myself would have been involved in a small business. I remember in the mid 80s, and I would never forget. We started this business. Some people, a group of us, some of us went to school together. We started this business with our own money. It was a small business, and everything was fine. We were dealing with the bank. The bank could see our records of deposits and whatever. And then when we said we wanted, you talk about expansion and so on, and the same bank that was seeing us do everything right, because we understood business. I came from a business background. The other persons as well. We had a mix of management and business skills among us. But when we wanted to expand, the bank was like, no, we can't. In other words, you're doing all right, but we can't give you, but well, as I told you, I
Yeah.
sat in places where I saw what happened. I saw what happened in terms of, I mean, right. The other thing that happens is that people run into difficulties, and in some cases, the institution will be willing to work with those people. And in some other instances, they just shut up shop on you, and you are disadvantaged. I mean, so I hear these things. I've witnessed them. I've been involved in business, so I know how some, so when we want to, as I was saying, when we want to talk about these issues, let us have a full discussion, and an honest discussion. But I think we've gone on a few minutes, and I
Yeah. Well,
believe I'm seeing,
yeah. Nigel is in. Don't
mhm.
forget though, you're the host. I'm the co-host. But
Yeah, well, that's
I would.
that's why I, yeah, but I am. Let
Yes.
me see, because I'm looking to see if I minimize this, if I could see, because you see, I wouldn't see. Okay, I'm seeing Nigel now,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you would see him
Yeah.
in the back room. So let me,
I would see him because
yeah. So
I
you have
activate
to,
the platform and so on. So, but let me bring Nigel into the conversation, Maxine, because as you know, Nigel is a researcher into
yeah.
the source of the issues. You know, sometimes we gloss over from a surface perspective, but he does go back and show us why things exist the way they do
Mm-hmm.
now. And the kind of inculcation, the kind of DNA that has been sown into our systems through our colonial masters and all the other components that come together to make us come to the positions that we are in now. But just before I come to you, Nigel, I just want to say this. You know, there are people, and I listened I read in the newspaper, Maxine, the well, I think it was the breaking of the ground too, to do with the Hayat and so on. And I looked at the access to the type of funding, $90 million, from different international agencies, different international entities that are going to be coming on board to help with the actual construction and all these different things, which I believe to a large degree comes out of relationship. Down through the years, businesses who will connect, and somebody, and I know somebody else, and this kind of thing. And of course, working together with the government. Um, and I find that from a position of our black people, we either don't utilize those aspects or we don't pull those aspects together. And as Nigel, I'm sure you will explain to us, there seems to be a hereditary problem that we can't seem to get that done. So welcome, Nigel. I'm putting you straight on the wicket with the first Yorker coming down at you.
Well, good night to you, Dr. Ferdinand. And I must say a very special welcome to Maxine McLean.
Thank you
It's,
very much. And I always listen to you, but I'm sitting here now with you from the start.
I see, I see. It's an honor to be with you on this show tonight.
Thank you.
Now,
Same here.
normally I come on Friday nights. I used to come on Friday nights, and then I started coming on more regularly. I am due another night this week, but here I am with you tonight, Maxine. And I am on
Yes.
this program tonight with a heavy heart,
Mm.
and I fear for the country, Barbados, and the citizens of Barbados. And that fear arose, I think it was Friday night. It arose after I heard the announcement about the Roadview St. Peter project. And then immediately following that was the Four Seasons project. And then before I could really understand what was going on, then it was the Hyatt Hotel that was announced. And what is clear to us tonight, Maxine and Dr. Ferdinand, and the question was asked in the program, but I don't see it on the show now. Has Barrow's prophecy, is Barrow's prophecy, was Barrow's prophecy true? And I remember when he first made that statement, it caught my attention. And from time to time, I would give it thought. And then a few years ago, I did some research and I came to the conclusion that Barrow's words were no longer prophecy, but they are the reality of Barbados. And that was a few years ago because I had written a document, Philosophic Reflections, Critique of Barbadian Social Problems. And I dealt with that issue. I also remember in the 1970s, while traveling through Ellerton down to the Turnpike to go down towards Buckley, Buckley's factory, I came across, there were some grandmothers who were working in the field, and lo and behold, there was the estate owner, who would be a white estate owner. He appeared riding a horse, and it was in the month of October. And in October then, the canes would have been wet from excessive dew. I had a young man in my car. I was going to the hospital, and I turned to him and I said, "But you think something like that should be happening in this day and age?" And he said to me, "What do you mean?" I said, "Grandmothers are through the canes, the wet canes, at this time of the year, and a white man is on a horse." And that young man looked at me and said, "But are you a racist?" And I was startled. But then I had to give him a few lessons in history. Okay? And the matter of the sale of Barbados's prime real estate to foreigners have been occupying my attention from then until now. I remember on April 10th, 1997, I stood before the Ford Constitution Review Commission, and in my address, and I just have two short paragraphs I would like to share with you. And this is part of my presentation to the Ford Commission on Constitutional Reform back on April 10th, 1997. Let me share with you so as to give the background to what I'm saying. Mr. Chairman, members of the Constitution Review Commission, ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you to voice my deep concern for the future stability and continuous peaceful development of Barbados. I am also registering my objections to the madness destroying the hope and character of African Barbadians. Such destruction is facilitated by the iniquitous pattern of land ownership and the wealth-generating sectors of the economy. The oppressive character of the law and its biased application in all areas of people activity is equally offensive to me. And I spoke about Barbados's size of 166 square miles with a population density of 270 persons. And I told them then that ownership and control of land was a critical matter. I'm paraphrasing. And I said to that commission then, the commission must critically evaluate and review the question of land ownership and access thereto. And I asked a few questions. Should a minority of the population be permitted to squander vast acreage of land at the expense of the poor, powerless majority? Should access to land be decided by the availability or control of money? In other words, should our land be a commodity on the open market? That is the world's capital market. And those questions are a burning reality in present day Barbados, because from the 70s to the 2000s and to now, no government sought to pay attention to the ownership and control of land in Barbados. And then to hear over this last weekend about the development project in Roadview, then the reopening of the Four Seasons Hotel project, and then the Hyatt Hotel. And of course, we know what is happening to the airport, to the South Coast, now the East Coast. What really is happening in Barbados today? And I am fearful and very concerned about the future of Black Barbadians, because no government is interested in preserving the limited land resource of Barbados for future generations of Black Barbadians. And the sad thing about the sale of land in Barbados is that it is being sold to people who do not look like us, one, who are xenophobic and have no care or interest in our well-being. Yet, our government continue to sell our limited land resource to foreigners. What really is happening to Barbados today? Why are we on this trajectory and seem not to be able to halt and to pay attention to the needs and the concerns of the majority population in Barbados? And I think what happened over this weekend and the future, the endangered future of Black Barbadians in this country is high. It says to me that it is high time for us in Barbados to limit the power of the government to make such critical decisions. Because I think it was during the last DLP government, the then Prime Minister said that Barbados is more than an economy.
It's a society.
And that says a lot, Dr. Nichols and Ms. McLean. It says a lot. Barbados is more than an economy. And when we continue to ignore, disrespect, and when we continue to ignore the interests and the needs of Black Barbadians, what really are we doing? What signals are we sending to the young people of this country? And then when they become frustrated and angry and get lost and get involved in criminal activity, then we have some Barbadians who are saying, bring back the cat, use the defense force, but nobody is paying attention to the needs, the fears, and the concerns of the majority population in Barbados. And I think, comrades, that something has to be done about this situation, because we cannot continue like this. We cannot continue like this, and we must, at all costs, do whatever is necessary to halt the sale of land to foreigners. Because the price of land, do you think that a young person leaving university or leaving school, do you think that a young person can really purchase a spot of land in Barbados today?
I want to, if I might, and I want to touch on that first question, because it's a conversation I had recently. The reality is it is going to be extremely difficult. And if you buy a piece of land, you're going to be challenged to start the construction of a house. Let's assume that's what the plan was, to start the construction of a house, because the price of land nowadays, in some instances, is as much as people paid to construct a decent house in the past. So, for example, a piece of land can run you into up to even $200,000. $100 and something $1,000. Think of a young person who has to do that. Now, the other thing that, and I would say this because this is something that I would have shared with members, and I claim it, so I let people know, with the members of the Democratic Labour Party, as a policy suggested to me by somebody. Now, if you buy a piece of land as a young Black, recently graduated university person or public officer, you actually have to, in most cases, to get a loan to buy that. So you're servicing that loan and hoping at some point to pay it off and then convert now to a mortgage where you can build a house. There are a couple of things that happen in there. If you are holding on to that land and paying it, your land tax penalizes you, because the rate of land tax on a vacant lot is significantly higher than something where they call it in improved value, that there's a structure, you have a house on it. And that is a penalty, because you're not, in most cases, the average Barbadian, where we're talking about investing, when we talk about investment, we have to ask ourselves, what is the sequence of so-called investment? If I'm just graduating from university, and I'm starting out and I buy a piece of land and I'm servicing that, I can't on my salary get a mortgage immediately. They will tell you, I can't service two loans. And the reality is, because in a lot of instances, many of us were first generation tertiary education graduates and working for the kind of salaries that we got. We didn't have parents to give us a birthday gift of a piece of land or half the price or whatever the case may be. We did not have that kind of opportunity. So the governments, and that's why I say I put it in writing to some persons to say this is something that we have to say to Barbadians and make a commitment that we have to revisit that land tax policy. Because at the end of the day, if you think about it, if your land tax becomes too high and you are struggling, you know what? You will end up saying, look, and I mean, I can tell you that my brother and I had a piece of land between us, and then we took a decision, because of what we felt we could do it, to sell that piece of property, because we said, you have a house each, and you're really not in a position to develop that, but you're being penalized with interest. So you better sell that and invest the money somewhere else. So when the Prime Minister talks about investment, let us get real. Unless you have put some systems in place, such as a unit trust arrangement or something where people can buy, can invest in that, and then they become part of an investor pool. The development of a hotel or condominium complex is outside of the reach of a set of BAJANS, unless you have that model. Now, the other question I want to raise quickly, Nigel, because I think you talked about land, and I want to put into this pool of discussion the sugar lands that government previously controlled, and they are supposed to have handed over to a cooperative. Now, my question is, and I will declare my hand, I invested in that co-op, because when I saw what happened in the 80s with the formation of credit unions like mine, and the way those credit unions were able to grow, if the terms and conditions of that transfer are such that they can really stay, that they have the space to grow and do whatever and control those lands, that is the last, I would call, significant tract of lands that will be controlled by average Barbadians. So in essence, while we're talking about tourism, etc., and I have no difficulty with focusing on tourism, but we have to look and see what are the implications of that, and what is, and from my mind, was the capacity and so on. But at the end of the day, can we focus on that alone and utilize certain agricultural lands where at the end of the day we are in a sector, we are still on a one-leg economy. So I think you've touched on some important issues there in terms of the future of Black Barbadians as landowners, and so on. And I see Glenn is with us. We're going to come to you quickly, shortly, Glenn. But Nigel, I think you've touched on a very serious thing, and I really would want to have you talk to us sometime about the whole issue of sugar and more broadly agriculture in a situation where, at the end of the day, notwithstanding all the promises of new tourism, infrastructure development, new hotels, etc., we are operating in an industry in which significant parts of that foreign exchange ends up having to be sent back out in order to support that industry. And at the same time, we are moving more and more away from agriculture. Um, and there's a paradox in relation to sugar, because when we talk about sugar, we talk about rum. And if we talk about rum, we talk about molasses. And that brings us into the whole thing of what constitutes Barbados rum. But I don't want to get complex. But I don't know if, Nigel, you want to respond to any of that, you know.
Well,
What
even
I,
before you respond, Nigel, Maxine, if I can raise this with the two of you, and let me welcome Glenn at the same time, because one of the things I tend to enjoy is the engagement of conversations, even as we flow into another segment. And so, Glenn, we welcome you to the show tonight on
Good
behalf of the
night.
Loyal Opposition. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Um,
yes, sir.
Good
we
night. Good
we
night, Nigel. Good
we're
night,
chatting
Maxine.
about the sorry, yes, we're chatting about the investment aspect that the Prime Minister spoke about over the weekend. At this stage, that is, with the breaking of grounds for a couple of projects. But Maxine, the thing that troubles me is that Barbadians seem not to have the access to invest, and I hope I'm trying to be so gracious and kind, Maxine, Glenn, Nigel. I really am. I'm trying. Barbadians seem to not be given the same heads up for investment opportunity in prime property in Barbados. And when I say prime property, obviously our coastline is generally considered to be prime property, some of the most expensive land that you can obtain in the country, along the south coast, along the west coast, all the way up to St. Lucie, all the way up that end. And as I drive around, my experience is that I don't see a single Barbadian, or well, let me say a single black Barbadian. Let me be brutally frank. I
Yes.
don't see a single black Barbadian. I don't see a single project or property on the coastline of Barbados that I consider to be prime property, engaged by black Barbadians. I don't see one of them. Every one of them I'm seeing seems to be overseas investments. And the thing that troubles me there too is that foreign exchange, Maxine, and I am still learning. So if I say something that's not right, I know you'll correct me, and certainly will, Glenn. But that foreign currency goes back out to the people who are investing. It's not staying here. They're paying their architects and their engineers and whatever, and that's not in Barbados. They don't live here. They don't reside here. Their companies are overseas, and millions of dollars are flowing back out to Barbados, and we are calling it investment. That's what troubles me.
Okay,
We talk about investment, but is that money actually coming into the Barbados
that
economy, Maxine, and
that's
staying?
why I said that there's significant leakage, because at the end of the day, what you have is an industry in which, whether you're talking about from construction through to operation of hotels, etc., that there's a significant requirement for the purchase of goods and services overseas. Whether, as you said, you may have a significant team of architects or whatever, engineers. And of course, I know that we will see that there are a lot of Barbadians who have worked. So, and then of course, operations, you're talking about food, etc. And the more we get out of agriculture, the less opportunity there is to supply the tourism sector. I just want quickly to share something, and then I'll ask both Nigel and Glenn to respond to you, and then we can move over to Glenn's presentation. What he's intended to share. But you mentioned that you don't see operations. Now, there's a requirement, I understand, with the new Town Planning Act, changes to the legislation, that prospective investors have to publicize certain information. And if you drive along, I think I saw a newspaper ad, but if you drive along the South Coast near to the on the seaside, near to what used to be the Vista, there is a property there with a billboard. No, I can tell you that that's a Black Barbadian. Now, as part of the requirement to get town planning permission, I think, if I understand correctly, that has to be erected. I am waiting to see whether some of the entities that finance some other projects will finance this Black entrepreneur. Because that's no, as to whether people like it or not. I mean, we've seen what has gone up further up, is it up the road or down the road? That's down the road, up the road. Because if you're going north, that's up. Although BAJANS say you go down St. Lucie, but I mean north you go, But further along that South Coast Road, so there's that there, and I just wanted to draw your attention, Ferdinand, to that project.
Thank
that
you.
I understand is a Black Barbadian who is actively looking, and it's something, I think it has a 6-story complex, hotel complex. So that would be local, so it's whether or not some of the same entities that would have financed these other people will do the same for him. But over to Nigel and Glenn, let me welcome you, and then as soon as Nigel makes his comment, we would hand over to you, and you can comment on what we've been talking about so far, or move directly into your presentation.
Yeah,
Nigel?
Maxine, you talk about finance and financing the various projects, but what about the bridging loan scheme? You go to the bank and you take out a loan, and then there are other costs, and you keep going back all the time. I can't explain it fully right now, but I want you to pay some attention to the bridging loan, okay? Because I know quite a few people who lost their property because of that bridging loan scheme from the banks. Something has to be done about that bridging loan to protect poor Black Barbadians from, well, I wouldn't say extortion, but from
Being disadvantaged.
Yes. And the other thing, what we need to understand in Barbados is that Barbados is still a colonial project. The Barbados and the economy of Barbados was not designed for us. We were and continue to be the hewers of wood and drawers of water for the economic system. And until we can recognize that and take decisive action to correct that, we will always be at the bottom of the economic ladder. And what is so frustrating is to see that we indigenous Barbadians are suffering, are becoming poorer and poorer, while others are entering into this country and are prospering at our expense.
Okay, what I will say quickly, I hand over to Glenn. I certainly will do some research and share with the loyal opposition some information on bridging loans, the cost of those things, the implications of it. And I would also say this. I mentioned about the savings and so on, but I always say it, and I will come back to this again in the context of investment in the future. There is power in pooling. And we as a group of people, at the end of the day, the 280,000 or whatever, we are the consumers, but we also do have collectively economic or financial power. Over to you, Glenn, and welcome this evening. And we have, we get caught up in these, and these things become so interesting,
Yes.
Yeah.
Good night, Jay.
Thank you. Good night. Good night,
Good.
everybody. Thanks for your warm welcome. I was intrigued by some of the things you were talking about, but I'd like to go back to first principles. I made a comment before I get into my presentation proper. This term entrepreneur, when I first became acquainted with it, it used to represent a very risky venture where if there was a great deal or great deal of risk involved, you were known as an entrepreneur. Otherwise, you were now known as a businessman or
a
businesswoman.
businessman or businesswoman, business person, yes.
Right. But if somebody's selling keys or donks or coconuts, how much risk is that in there? There's a lot of risk, and I think we've done ourselves a lot of harm by picking this term entrepreneur and throwing it at everybody. I remember one time one of the ministers from Christchurch, one of my MPs, talking about blockpreneurs. I think even one of the ministers I could talk about agripreneur. I think it's fooling ourselves. I think we get into the language, the jargon, when in truth and in fact it's not representing what we are doing. I think we should do it, say it for what it's worth and treat it and use the terminology that's most appropriate to it. And one of the reasons why Barbadians who have traditionally been risk averse, don't forget we've had some major collapses of institutions down the years from the 19th century and forward. But apart from that, in Barbados, if your business fails, you are seen as a failure as a person, and that tag is associated with you for the rest of life. It's not like in the United States or Canada or even England where you are allowed to where you can file for bankruptcy with fair of a business and then start another business. The Barbados want your business has failed or collapsed or as I say, as it shut down, you shut down, your reputation and your prospects are shut down too. So I think there are a lot of sociological and psychological factors that help determine why people want to take risk or don't want to take risks. But my other thing too, Maxine, I'm glad you raised. I came in at the end when you were talking about the sugar industry. One of the things that I've been curious about is I knew we had just entered a new sugar venture really with Colonel Trevor Brown and Dr. Clyde Maskell and the government and the private sector and whatnot. The first crop was this year, but since the end of the crop, I've not really heard anything about the venture. Has it succeeded? Has it failed? I heard one of the members from the private sector saying that they had lost money again this year, but I have not heard Colonel Brown or Dr. Maskell come back and give a comprehensive report to the country. And don't forget, I mean, even though it's a private venture, there was a lot of public involved because we're seeking to get the credit unions, developers to invest. So I think they have a moral obligation to come and give the country update as to how was that year and what are the future prospects for the venture. I know you've had insight, Martin, into it.
I await information as well. As I said, I'm a member of the co-op because I believe in what the fundamental thing of controlling those lands and whatever else. I have not heard a report yet myself, but I also want to, because I have raised publicly when it was first mooted, etc., and within the confines of the annual general meeting of the co-op, some important questions. One of the things I would say, and we need to have the public understand exactly what's happening, and I also want government to be very clear as to also letting us know from the perspective of government what it is that they. I mean, we've heard some, but I would want to hear from government what the situation is now, because the last thing I would want for us to hear is that, oh, this thing has failed and we are handing over these lands to a set of expatriates. Because as far as I'm concerned, the sugar industry is one in which we as a country, there, let me put it this way, the benefits of the sugar industry go beyond the production of sugar and molasses. If we think of the landscape that is Barbados, I recall when the St. Kitts and Nevis government went out of sugar. I was in St. Kitts for the last when the factory closed. And I went back there just over a year and a half or so. And if you saw the state of the farmer fields, so I'm saying that there's an aesthetic aspect to that, which I guess you have to value and so on. And we cannot, as a country, envisage a rapid or very immediate exit out of sugarcane without some clear understanding of what we're doing. It cannot be bricks and mortar, you know.
I,
Um,
I agree with you wholeheartedly, but what concerns me is that I think I'd heard the Minister for Agriculture say the last contribution or subsidy to the sugar would have been given last year. Now
but
I'm
I
hearing
and
you remember hearing that?
but that I think is one of the things that he said. No, I hear that, but I also would say to the government of Barbados, your arrangements with the IMF are very convenient, but this is the same government that would have set aside during COVID, was it something like $300 million to make available to tourism? And when we start to think of the leakages from tourism and so on, um, and the fact that a lot of this would probably require foreign exchange and a whole set of things, my
But
question
but
is,
but that apart, government's whole arrangement with the BAMC or what it
Mhm.
was fraud. We never quite knew what the government
Understood.
was.
And that's why I
So
said
we need a full, clear statement, put everything on the table, so let the
That's why I
public
say
know.
government needs to talk, because you see, a company can't speak for government. They can probably share what from their perspective in negotiation, but we need to hear from government too. I agree with you.
We need it from the company because
That too.
my understanding is that the reaction from the credit unions was not as strong as the investors at home, as the principals at home. In
Let,
other
let
words,
me.
let me make my point, man. Let me
Mm.
make my point. I am told my information is that some credit unions were saying, okay, let individual members invest, but not this institution as such until we get as such or until we get further and better information. And that might have been a stymie on the whole process.
Now, let me also say this. That whole process was rushed. Remember, because the by the time when government indicated that they had a commitment to the IMF to be out of the industry, I think it was December last year, and so on. But in terms of credit union, there are a couple of things in there. One, yes, they need and they must, because that they have to, they have fiduciary responsibility for people's money, and they need to have proper information. But the credit unions as institutions are constrained. And remember, I talk about power and pooling. Now, there is an opportunity for the membership, and I talked about this, to look to invest in not only the sugar industry but other kinds of investments that we can talk about, but where the risk is spread because you are pooling the resources of the movement. The
Uh,
movement is more than
uh,
100,000 members.
I understand that. But
You know.
what has me intrigued
Mm-hmm.
is that, with all due respect to Colonel Brown and Dr. Maskell, who are both common mayors, honorable common mayors, they came,
There we go.
of whom I'm justifiably proud, but they came to the public and were very, very voluble in their presentation.
You
Not
have to
all of a sudden, they
come
go
back.
quiet. Why? Not a
You have
word,
to
not
come.
a drop. So that is what had me concerned. But anyhow, so I hope that you will bring back information, or they're
But
free to
I will.
come
I,
on the
I
show.
I will tell them that they need the people who spoke need to come back and speak again.
Of course, thank you. All right, I want to change gears then, and I want to talk about some local politics now, not
All
local
right.
business and investment. And I don't want to look at, of course, I want to look at the Prime Minister's major speech to the conference of the Barbados Labour Party yesterday at Foundation School. First of all, I must note, and I look at these things as a Barbadian, a semi-retired journalist, or even though you're first retired, the skills and the perspectives and what you look for still operate with your mind every time you look at the TV or listen to the radio or read a newspaper story. So first I noticed that the Prime Minister wore a white outfit. She had a scarf sprinkled in red. But this was the same prime minister who, of a party who was so obsessed with red that they got the floor of the school painted red. But she in herself was dressed in white with a scarf and some emblazoned from the point with red. But not only that, her mother was in red. Other her friends were in red, in white. When it saw that, it made me remember that I've seen only one member of the premises family wear red at a political meeting, a red T-shirt, and that was in 2008 when I worked with the late Warren, her brother who died unfortunately. We were managing some meetings during the campaign, and he wore he was prepared a red shirt. Otherwise, the family wears white, and it struck me yesterday because I remember that white started primarily when there was when Miss Molly's removed as leader of the opposition, and when after took back over the reins in 2010, then so there was this rift and a staying away, and all the supporters, all those who were against Prime Minister Arthur worldwide to all the party functions. So that brought that memory. That brought back that to me. So I thought that, and I was also struck with the fact that the Prime Minister dismissed in her speech, dismissed the unprecedented step. Because I've been to BLP annual conferences all over Barbados, all kind of schools, and never once did I see the floor get painted red, right? So, but she dismissed there are a lot of government, there's a lot of private building floor red on the floor. That was not the point. The point is that this was a school, which was in my mind was vandalized, and it makes me wonder if the principal knew and agreed, or if the chairman of the board knew. Although I think that we should go to the board if it impacts on the school. So I'm just wondering the background, but that's the backstory. But as to that, I also know the Prime Minister used teleprompters, but still she seems to very divert from this. She was repetitious, repeated herself. She was unstructured and whatever. But the saving grace was that she did not speak as long this time as she's accustomed speaking. So for that, I think I have to be grateful. But so if I can now move from the form, let's look at the substance of the presentation. I think she probably I stopped counting time after hour and about 10 minutes, so I'm not sure exactly how long she spoke. But for the substance, the thing that stood out, which made the front page with understand BLP's beacons. And the Prime Minister spoke, he enunciated 5 beacons. Now, first of all, having critiqued the speech as a journalist and one I was news editor at The Nation and at The Advocate, I used to have to evaluate people's copies to value the intrinsic value, the journalistic value, the newsworthiness of the stories. I would say that if I would have struggled as a reporter to write a substantial story of the Prime Minister's speech. To me, it was ordinary. I think it was one of her weakest as regards substance. For the 5 beacons, if you look at it quickly, the 5 beacons, I don't know if you all read, she talked, these are principles that she wants to see Barbados use, principles and practices to revive its culture and itself. She talked about accountability, should be cleanliness, respect for others, solutions, and another one, solution oriented. I might know something with the 5th one here. It's called Barbadian citizenship. To me, they're basically repetitious of previous speeches. And a prime minister's speech, especially at the annual conference, usually highlight full of substance and projects and announcement that would take the country forward. To me, this is a repetition. It reminded very much of the much heralded and celebrated Covenant of Change. This document, which was supposedly a very wordy, long document, very
Covenant of Hope
glossy.
it was?
Covenant of Hope. That was celebrated soon after they came into office, then it was made a document, the House, etc. It was meant to really chronicle and encapsulate all the philosophy and principles and practice of the party and its vision and what it would do for Barbados. This seems to be a mini version of the Covenant of Hope, which the Covenant of Hope really did not take ground in Barbados. They don't even take ground with the party because the only person I've heard mention it in recent times has been the Prime Minister herself. And so when they went to Beacons, it reminded me that the Barbados party used to have a newspaper called The Beacon in the early days, 40s, 50s, 60s. It went for a number of years off and on, depending if they're in government or whatnot, out of government. I think it probably went into the late 80s or something like that. That was their newspaper, and that came on the scene when they were when the Barbados Labour Party came in 1930, and they had to fight against other established papers to get their message out. You had the Agricultural Reporter, you had the Advocate, you had the Recorder, you had the Torch, and there were a number of them. Barbados used to be full of newspapers, not dailies but weeklies, etc. So I think they're trying to recapture that memory of the Beacon, but that wasn't. I think that era has passed. Okay, and I also had to reflect on why the term beacon. Because the term beacon, a beacon can be from all I've read and know. A beacon, our lighthouses have a light. A beacon, that is a beacon, and a beacon can either be used to guide you to safety, to avoid the shoals or the rocks and the sand, or it can be used to warn you. So I'm wondering if these 5 beacons are meant to be guidance or warning. Because when you look at them, they really are quite lame and tame. And I think it really is. It's highly simplistic. This presentation of the 5 beacons. To me, it's thing that we took for granted and did as a matter of course years ago. Now, when they grew up, I was told, I'm sure Maxine, all of us here, Ferdy, Niger, cleanliness is next, godliness. That was part of your upbringing at home, at school. That was part of the social ethos and that we accepted across society as a principle of Barbados living. Accountability. We talk about accountability was given, where you're accountable for your behavior, your actions, decisions, that one. And the next one is respect. Things that we call about. Obviously, some of these things would have been over the years as a society has changed. But to me, for and to be solution, no, to be global citizens. Barbados have been global citizens from forever, and might not have been promoted, but wherever Barbadians have gone abroad, all over the world, they have represented Barbados in themselves well with distinction. So it's something we did as a matter of course. Maxine and I, who worked for government abroad, would know you do it at different levels. But the whole mentality is there to put the best foot of Barbados' image forward at the same time. But the one I want to pay more attention to is the while the thinking behind it is commendable. I think and lofty. I think that especially the one where the prime or the fifth one, the prime minister, that as from January, she wants the Paris Speaks programs to now want people to stop coming to complain and coming to bring solutions. Stop coming to come. So the one of the point is solution. We have to be a solutions country. So you are supposed to come with solutions for the thing. Now I reflect on that. How practical. I've heard that talk in Barbados. I never bought into it. I never bought it because, and they said, a solution country. When they go to the doctor and they give my symptoms, my complaints, my head, my stomach, my foot, he doesn't say, well, what do you diagnose? What would you prescribe? His job is to evaluate my complaint and find, that's what they're trained for. And I do not subscribe, I would not encourage that when you go to speak, you have to come up with a solution. If you try to come up with a solution to my medical problem without a background, how would they present it? So how does a person who wants to talk about water in Barbados, how do you come with a solution when you don't know the background, the content, the intricacies, the science? How do you come with a solution? Plus, this is the first government in the history of Barbados, that been familiar before 51, which has ever called upon the public to give them solutions.
Question for you, Glenn.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Because I was listening to you. Why do you think? I mean, because maybe I'm a cynic, but what do you think? What is behind that?
Behind what? Asking for solutions?
Asking for solutions, yes.
Because I think it's a reflection on the inadequacies of the government.
Okay.
Like I was saying, this is the first government has asked the public to come with solutions. In fact, all the governments I know, all the parties that have won government have come with their ideas, their solutions to the public. You buy them. The Barbados Labour there in 2018, 2022, they had solutions. So now all of a sudden, and that's what they are paid for. That they have the expertise, the opportunity. That is their responsibility. So how can they come and talk about solution to development problem?
You gotta forgive me, guy. I'm laughing. I'm laughing because you said that is what they're paid for.
Of course.
And I have been saying, Maxine, you all have heard me say this over and over and over. The ministers and the prime minister are our employees. We are their employers. And I want to say this quickly, Maxine, before you make your comment. And we're gonna have Rose join us shortly. Glenn.
How short? You hope my time is gone already?
No, you go ahead. You go
ahead.
Okay. I love how the night is flowing.
I still have a few more points to make. Yeah.
Yeah. I love how the night is flowing one into the other. Listen, I wrote something here. If you want to stop complaints, do the right thing.
Precisely.
It's very simple. If don't tell the people of Barbados to stop complaining, you obviously you have acknowledged the fact that there's a reason they're complaining by that admission alone. So if you want solutions, you do the right thing. Listen, the government knows what it needs to do, Glenn. The government knows what it needs to do.
Are you sure?
No, I am sure. I am sure they know. And I mean, as God above is my witness, I am sure they know. But they don't have the intestinal fortitude to put it into action because
I think they may know the problems as articulated by people. But do they know what to do? But I can let Glenn, because I think that part of the problem is that they seem short of ideas. And in fact, I will let Glenn finish, but what I wanted to say very quickly, that when you were talking about the focus of the Prime Minister's presentation, at this stage in their tenure as a government, I would have expected a lot more reporting of their accomplishments if they had them. But you go ahead, Glenn, I'll come back to that.
So I am very opposed to the idea that the public should be asked to do the job of the government. I think they should go back. I don't think we should subscribe to that at all. But apart from that too, I believe, Maxine, I would have been in the camp, you would have been in the camp. I would have felt less than a human being. I would have been ashamed of myself if to be a group of people at cabinet, I really say that we have to ask the public for solutions. I can't figure me in my self-esteem, my whole persona and sense of accomplishment, and your contribution to the public. So that still haunts me. But the other thing is that the Prime Minister made these 5 beacons, but she has not given any meat to it. She has not given any ideas. How are you going to operationalize it? How much would it cost? What would it take? What resources would you need? No structure at all. And I know from my experience, okay, it's already have an idea, but you must know form follows function, but you must do a process.
They seem to want to lose us as well.
and for those who think I might be picking on the Prime Minister, I am not picking on the Prime Minister. I was in the cabinet period with the Prime Minister for 9 years. So I've seen that work. And not only that, but I had tasked to do something. Like I had the idea, Prime Minister, tasked me to develop a program to celebrate independence. I was able to 95% of the ideas were mine. I was able to think it through, give
We
it
started off
structure,
with the
a
Prime Minister. We ran into trouble with the technology. Go ahead, Glade.
and that is why it was successful. The Prime Minister after gave me task to set the National HIV/AIDS Commission. That was and it's still working and function today. I set up I was in charge of the process set as the minister. I had responsibility to set up the Office of Public Sector Reform, which they have now shut down at their behest of the Anthem called something called the Efficiency Unit. So, and I know what it takes to break something from idea, from talk to chalk and walk and realization. I got no idea from the Prime Minister as to whether she had thought about that or whatever. But I was also disappointed that she could come and report the country, and I made no response to some of the glaring items of dissatisfaction over time. Like, for example, how could she come and she talk about love and care for the country and the people that love Barbados, they love her country, and no reference to the situation with water in St. Lucie? And she being minister responsible for the Barbados Water Authority, and not even a glance in reference. No, unless no, I can't remember. No mention of it. How can that be? No serious mention of education. Put into context what's happening, trying to seek to bring all the missteps of the conflict to some kind of resolution to restore confidence in the performance of the sector, and not only the results, but the performance of the sector. And on that score, I think somebody, President Ali, who obviously came, they seem to be members of Mutual Admiration Society.
Yes.
So right? He obviously came to boost her profession. I understand you're the guest, but he was obviously reading a brief of what they had promised to do, and they gave him. And he got into, you say not just talk, but he's trying to operate how it was being done. He even talked about schools of excellence. He spoke of schools of excellence as though it was something that had been implemented. Mm-hmm. Right? I said, well, somebody did not update that brief thing, because that had been abandoned publicly in the fiasco that they brought out to be some education transformation or reformation. So nobody mentions schools of excellence anymore or junior college anymore. So he needed to be brought up to date. So I thought that the country was shortchanged by the president and the prime minister. I think much more should have. We need much more for me to think that. And don't forget this: the party has come to us. There's been a lot of criticism in the last few months on the government. Lots of it. They might not want to admit it or not, but one would have thought that they would use this occasion to set the country at ease, to try to regain the confidence of the country. The prime minister said that she did that yesterday. They would have had a day of responsible by reports by the various sectors. Fine, that is for your in-house party. I did not watch it online. But if you want to report in the country, you should give it a comprehensive look, dealing with all that's happened in the country. Therefore, I thought that she should have could have done much better. I don't think the vandalizing of the floor of Foundation School to hold the conference is worth it, given the value. The news value that came out. I mean, if I would have struggled hard to write, if you read the story today on the front page of the Nation, I think they must have done it because they feel out of respect, or she has a very strong connection to the Nation. They'll probably have to do it because she's pregnant. But as a journalist, it was not worth it. They could have probably gone to a story from the Israeli bombing in Gaza, and made it more relevant, or the American president. It really did not resonate with the needs and the mood and the tempo of the country. They thought that she did the country a short disservice by presenting that, and the main thing to those 5 beacons I think that's another gimmick, another buzzword that was so
Yes.
as most of them have. I mean, I compliment her and her team again. Who wants more with another buzzword, another slogan? They're very good at slogans and buzzwords.
That's right.
And- but I want to see. I want tell me how it's gonna work because what the when you put all those five so-called beacons together, what you're really talking about re-educating the public, re-acculturating the public, resetting our value. And it cannot be done by pronouncement from on high on the platform. It has to
Right.
be operationalized at the community, at the family, at the people level. So, and it will take time. It will not happen in 4 or 5 years. You have to have a vision of it. You have to give it study, look at the various contributing sectors. So to me, it's just something that
Words.
sounds possible that would catch the headlines. It did for the nation. To me, nothing more than that.
All right. Well, I'm sorry to rush you, Glenn, because Rose is here, and let me welcome her. But let me just give you a slogan because, as you said, the Prime Minister likes slogans, and the last slogan was, "Give me the vote and watch me." So I am saying, based on those beacons, the new slogan is, "Don't just watch me, tell me what to do." Because, but we continue. Rose, welcome.
As the BAJANS will say, you bowling very horse stylish.
That's what happens when you put me to co-chair the session. Over to you, Rosa. Good evening. Thanks a lot,
Good
Glenn. As
evening.
usual,
Good evening.
we
Good
can
evening.
explore that some more. Rose,
Go ahead.
sorry.
Yes, good evening, all.
Good
Yeah,
evening,
good
I'm
Rose.
evening, Rose.
having fun here. I'm enjoying this engaging conversation amongst ourselves. And I want to say first and foremost, thanks for the opportunity again to be with you and to greet the loyal sons and daughters all out there, firm craftsmen of our faith. Good evening, all. Nigel and Glenn and Maxine and Pastor Ferdy. A pleasure. Now, Glenn, you have stolen my thunder, but I
Oh,
still
dear.
have some role in my thunder.
Okay.
And you have been peeping at my notes, Glenn. And right beside
Artificial intelligence.
right beside me.
Right.
And my notes. So we know that we are persons who are critical thinkers. We don't have to wait until education, the transformation in education create critical thinkers. We thank God that we have had sound and solid education that has enabled us to think critically, analytically, and to be able to dissect, extrapolate, extract whatever you want to say, truth from fallacy. And when we did that today from what we would have heard, we realized that it was an empty message, really. It was, as Glenn noted, it did not address what is national, what is current. It was just for themselves and to make themselves feel good and create more of their bubble for themselves, excluding the realities, not taking into consideration the realities of our country. And as Maxine said, I say it was full of buzzwords. They seem to have run out. You know, just a couple of months ago, they were saying, we feel you, was it? We feel you, we hear you, we got you, was it? We feel you, we hear you, we got you, something like that. And I said, oh, they're working on the psyche now, the national psyche, to to bring that high. It sounds very much like give me the vote and watch me. So I heard Tony Moore repeating it, Sandra Husbands repeating it, and so many more repeating that Ophelia got your see, whatever it is. And then looking at what we heard, again, the buzzwords, the covenant of hope. I have my notes here. And the buzzwords again, it is about enfranchisement for whom? It is about empowerment for whom? My question marks are here. It is for inclusion for whom? More buzzwords, working on the psyche. And I looked particularly at the first beacon, and I wrote it down. I wrote it down to absorb it from the nation. And let me read what she is reported as saying of that concerning that first beacon. And I'm saying, I can't keep up now. We now got the covenant of hope. Everything is a buzzword. Now we hear beacon. So let me hear what this first beacon says, and I'm going to read it. For Barbadians, the first beacon is for Barbadians to be voices of accountability. Note that, write it down. Voices of accountability. As the country faced its current socio-economic landscape, she wants all Barbadians to remember that if they see anything, to speak up. Creating a society of silence is dangerous, Motley warned. That's what the press reported. Aren't we experiencing at times, or do we experience at times, the effort to create a society of silence? There are occasions when this very platform, this very show has been criticized for not being silent. There are attempts through the cybercrime bill to create a society of silence. What my question here is, what do they want us to see and speak up about? Is this only about the crime that we've been exposed to? Or is it about their governance? So if we see things that are happening around us, she has told us to do what? Speak up. Because creating a society of silence is dangerous. So I am challenging all of us to do what? Speak up. She has given us permission to speak up because creating a society of silence is dangerous. She went on to say, speaking truth should be a civic duty for every citizen of this country, noting that accountability was needed across the country. And I made my note here. Accountability needed from whom? From her office, meaning the position she holds, from her cabinet, from her ministers, from the ministries, from her MPs, the backbenchers, those who don't hold ministries or portfolios. She is asking for accountability. Can they be held to accountability? This is what she's asking for. But it seems as though this is one-sided. Accountability from the public, where you maybe screen on what's happening in the community. But at the same time, when we speak out about what's happening in the Ministry of Education, I'm coming back to that, and we are asking for greater accountability and productivity, and let us see some results and solutions. And we are saying, look, the Minister of Education is not functioning. Remove her, shift her. We are not seeing any results from the Prime Minister on that regard. And still she is saying here that accountability is needed across the country. But when they should lead in being accountable to this, the Barbadian public, it is one-sided. We're not getting it from them. I'm glad she's seeing it, because we can go back to this and say, you are asking for accountability across the nation. Lead by example. Accountability when it comes to the whole housing. Accountability when it comes to the water issues. Accountability when it comes to the health issues. Accountability when it comes to the money spent on Kensington and how many millions spent on Oysters to buy the tents? 5 million. You are asking us to be accountable. And I believe she means to in your community, because she went on to say, if it happens at home. So now it is shifting away from them. And she's saying, if it happens at home, at church, in communities, or on the block, it is needed. Accountability is needed. Regret cannot be the platform to this country's stability. Well, if I am destabilizing the country, I have regrets. If I say I regret how the Ministry of Education is functioning under the present Minister of Education, am I destabilizing the country then? Am I undermining the stability of the country? And then, Glenn, I'm picking up on what you said, where the Prime Minister said she is tired of Barbadians only wanting to complain, bring solutions. I have it here, Glenn. I was not peeping at your paper. And like Maxine and Ferdy and yourself said, Glenn, shouldn't they be bringing the solutions? They have all the consultants. They're well paid. They have all the resources. They have well-appointed public servants who can provide solutions. And now she's saying that going forward at the Paris Speak, and how can you go to Paris Speak, from what I'm seeing, and be shot down by her? So you're saying that the previous ones were a waste of time? I followed them. And when people came to Paris Speak and they did not sing the chorus or the refrain, the very Prime Minister got riled. and sought to put people in their places. I heard solutions coming from the floor, or if there were not solutions, questions and concerns were raised that you could examine and translate or find solutions for. That's what I'm hearing all the time. So we now have to wait until the next round of sparrow speech, and you go now with solutions. Are you telling me that there are empty now, there are void of solutions, as Glenn and Maxine pointed out? Then she continued, according to what's reported, that there are those waiting to undermine and undervalue our country. Barbados is not run by people on the radio, but people who call in on the radio. Some of them, most of them, quite a few of them offer solutions. They offer solutions. So I'm hearing here, Barbados is not run by people on the radio or naysayers or those who remain outside the stadium. And Pastor Ferdy, you will like this. An analogy was given to the scripture verse. The race is not for the swift, but for those who show resilience. And it was an invite or an invitation to run the race with the government, with Team Barbados now. Don't remain outside the stadium, but be a part of Team Barbados. I can't be a part of Team Barbados, who are wherever they are situated, but one gets the opinion or the view or the notion that Team Barbados refers to them and join Team Barbados, but Team Barbados ain't got no ideas. Team Barbados ain't got no solutions. So I don't want to be part of a process like that. And so the occasion, the grand occasion, remember on Friday night I talked about painting the town red. And painting the town red is a metaphor for having fun and a party and you know, being social, etc. And that is what really happened in that. There, I found there was nothing substantial. It was, and remember, I also said, I am going to be listening and reading and analyzing to hear the narrative, the rhetoric, the fallacy, the contradictions, and misleading information. And I asked ourselves to look for, you know, one word that can replace misleading information, a synonym. And so this is where we're at. And I'm glad that the lead was taken tonight by my colleagues here to critique what was on show and what we heard from the leader, the Prime Minister of Barbados. I'm not impressed. And I am stripping away beacon number one. And I'm saying accountability cannot be the call of she said, what's happening in the home, the school, the church, the communities on the block. We cannot be the only ones being held accountable. Accountability starts with the those who hate this government, and those who form the government. Accountability begins in your space. Lead by example. Come to us and tell us what's going on. Come to us and be accountable for public funds. Come to us and be accountable and let us know what are the outcomes of all your frequent flyers. Show them to us. Let us know what is happening. That is the hallmark of accountability for me, coming from that end. I pause here because
Okay.
I
Well,
pause here.
I tell you,
Yes.
there are just a couple of things, Maxine, because I want to stay out of the fray a little bit
But
tonight.
I
But
will make a
it's
couple
so
comments after
hard.
you quickly because I know
It
we
is
have
so hard. Yeah,
Abraham supposed
we
to
have
come on.
Abraham lining up to come in.
Mhm.
Just a couple of things. Team Barbados is this. Team Barbados is this. The loyal opposition. This is Team Barbados. This is Team Barbados. What they're talking about is Team Barbados Labour Party. They're not talking about Team Barbados. That's the first thing. The second thing is that they campaigned. Their mantra, and Glenn, you can correct me if I'm wrong, their mantra in campaigning, I think it was 2018 and probably again in 2022, was transparency and accountability. That was their mantra. All right. We've seen neither from the government on any occasion. All right. So I am dismissing her language, and let me just say this. Uh, they're being intimidated. Maxine, Rose, Nigel, Klein. See this delegation that going to Washington, D.C.? That got them worried because while the Attorney General is speaking that the IACHR cannot legislate anything to the government, the IACHR can provide us with the necessary tools to take it to the next level, which is the court of human rights.
Right.
And I can assure you, we are not going to be stopping at the commission.
All right. Nigel, before I comment, is there anything that you would want to? And then Glenn,
Yes, not directly to Glenn, but I think when he was speaking, and I think earlier in the program, I wanted to highlight um, what is our vision for Barbados? Do we have a vision for this country? Because I believe that our problems, or we can begin to resolve our problems as a nation if we can identify a vision for the future. I also want to know, do we have a clearly defined political philosophy to guide us? Because if we had a philosophy, I am sure a lot of the blundering that is going on in Barbados today in the area of governance and everywhere else, I'm sure we would not be going through uh, such. And then, what is the role of nationalism, a spirit of nationalism in the development of a country? And do we have a nationalist philosophy or any national sentiments? And until we can identify those or answer those questions, I think, as the older Barbadians will keep saying, we will continue to be spinning top in mud.
Glenn, if you
Yeah,
don't, oh, you go ahead and then
yeah. I
and
just
then
want
I'll
to
wrap it up.
say that I was reflecting as my days as a reporter. As a reporter, I covered speeches by party leaders and prime minister at the annual conferences. And I had to report on and make stories out of them. After that, I would have worked with Prime Minister Tom Adams and put together his speeches where he would write them longhand and I see them work. I did the same with Prime Minister Arthur as per leader Prime Minister. And I'm saying that this kind of drivel could not come there, could not come anywhere near any of them that I've covered. I mean, this is really below the standard of what Barbados deserves. This is not world class. This is not global citizenship material. Really is not. I'm very fair. I'm very hard. Like I said, as that remember there used to be an American commercial that with where somebody was with McDonald's. Where is the beef? There's no beef. There's no meat. There's no substance. There's nothing for the country to chew on to feel better. They can say, okay, well, I know what is coming to our way. What to do from here? We are still left dwindling and dawdling and hanging around.
You know, I think Blaine and everybody else here with us are, panel and members of the loyal opposition. I think when I listened to those, or when I heard those beacons articulated, given the point at which this administration is and has been in office, you've been in office now about 6 years, and you listen, I thought you would illustrate them to say, okay, citizens, this is how we have been governing. We committed our call, our promise was to be accountable and transparent. We have been exemplars, at least in these areas. And so let us illustrate how we are doing it and call on Barbadians to do it. But I'm gonna ask the question, Blaine. I don't know if you know. Has the Prime Minister traveled to some more for the Commonwealth Heads of Government Conference? I suspect that her mind was preoccupied with getting to that conference. And I'm getting a little echo. Somebody sent me a note to get an echo. So maybe when we're not speaking, we might turn off our mics. That if because I'm hearing myself too. But I really am. I was thinking that she was preoccupied with being somewhere else and cobbled together something, and as usual, it lacked substance, and that's the best we can say about that. But I noticed that Abraham is with us. Mr. Millington, welcome. I guess we've been having some very interesting conversations, and we've been running alone, and the clock has been running faster than we have been. But I just want to welcome you, and you can join us now in this. I'm sure you have some interesting information to share. But at the end of the day, I just want to reinforce to those who listen or watch us to say, look, our task this evening has really been to look at what is topical, and certainly this evening we have caused and have taken the pause to reflect on what is usually a very important occasion in the life of the political parties in Barbados. Certainly the two main political parties over the years will use their conference to reflect on their performance, their articulate their plans. And so, in essence, that is what we are critiquing, evaluating. So welcome, Abraham, and over to you.
I must say that first I was look at what is called the basket of goods. Now, if you don't have a basket of goods, you sure you don't come empty-handed. A leader doesn't come to a forum like that empty-handed. And if you came empty-handed, it would deduce that what you were saying was a lot of nothing, would it not? And essentially, with things going so much out of whack in the country, and if you cannot name one ministry. Or I should rephrase the statement. Asking you in the panel or or listeners in Barbados and diaspora, name one ministry that is either flourishing or that the public can say with a shadow of doubt it is blooming beyond beyond desire. And that being the case, it brings your mind to that the issues of the day were not addressed, as if it is like picture a person standing on your foot, not knowing that they're on your foot, and you are telling them ow, or you are saying ow, and the person will move. So essentially you have a leader must know the woes that are on the ground and fail to address them, hoping that the country would believe that what is happening on the ground is all fancy and all aglow. Now, I saw a simulation there between the government of Guyana and Trinidad, sorry, and Barbados there, and I won't really stray off into that, but where I would stray in is the basket of goods syndrome that mirrored a few days or a week ago in Guyana. And well, I wouldn't want to call it a basket of goods, be a lot of nothing that was mounted on the platform. And then, as you can, I think I heard there was a loading of karaoke and singing and a song and dance. So as Rose was talking to earlier, you can't have a country that continues, or I should say a leadership that continues to ignore the serious woes on the ground and feel that they can just hush it with organized merriment. I call it organized merriment. That has to stop. You know, it is how long will the country or the citizens bear some person standing on their toe and just keep their mouth shut as if nothing is happening, right? So I'm going back to the question I asked. Can anybody in the panel answer this question? Name a ministry, any of the ministries, just a random, like how you would, how you have a bag and you put some things in the bag and shake it up and you want to pull to a draw, like a draw. Let's have a draw tonight. You name any ministry off your head. Just don't think too hard. Just name any of them, and see which one is actually doing what it's supposed to be doing. Can one come to your head? You know that if something is really standing out, how it could just come to your head, like can the panel? Can any ministry?
If I may interject, I have you. The only one that comes to my mind who seems to be doing a fairly decent job given what it means is tourism. I think tourism has been fairly steady where Barbados is concerned. I think the results will show that tourism has been doing fairly well. It's probably one of the best performing ministry of all the others.
Unfortunately, Glenn, tourism has not caught up with 2019, and when we do a comparative analysis
but
with the rest of the Caribbean,
Maxine, why do we have to start at 2019? Tourism has been making marks, has been doing better. It has not been stagnant. It has not been falling behind. It might not be doing as well as others have been compared, but on its own right, it has been a steady performer. New airlift numbers are rising, etc. So that's why he said that is probably only half decent one. I'm not saying it's perfect, right? But I think it has been steady, no controversies. Like for example, the only thing I was talking to somebody there about one of my old first contact. There was some talk about a large delegation going to Dubai the other to sign a air service agreement. First, it was pointed out to me a delegation had about 5 or 6 people. The minister, not as minister of tourism, as minister of international transport, to sign new air service agreement between Barbados and UAE. So he took along, because he had taken along people in different aspects, aviation, traffic control, to the technical people that is the size of the leg. But it was not.
They negotiate. I mean, I must correct you there. Sorry. But it's for illustration. I signed a double taxation agreement in UAE and Bahrain by myself because I'd gone to a conference.
But they were not
negotiations took place.
Above all, the government paid the UAE government paid all the expenses, so it was of no real cost of Barbados.
Okay.
All right, but the technical people went to get some technical insights and advice from people who, because they've done magnificent well with that desert. With money. It only shows if you have money and ideas what you can do with the country. So I just
The
try to put that on
problem
the table.
therefore is that we never heard. You see, the other thing very quickly is we don't get information on delegations and what they're going to do. I was on a holiday recently and I met about 3 different groups of two ministers, I think it was, in 3 different delegations going, and I wasn't even aware, well, except one, because I know the Minister of Tourism is a scheduled set of meetings he goes to, but the others you don't hear about anything when they're going. GIS used to give you at least reports,
Routinely,
but you don't hear anything
even
like
on
that now.
even on the Prime Minister now, that is a closed shop. That is a
But
I wrap up now. You have to understand. I made reference to this last program on several days. Avinas Persad, as the advisor told me years ago, that they decide what they want to talk about, no matter what the public calls for, and they don't want to address it. They do. So they don't have any responsibility, any obligation to be accountable to the public in the way that past governments used to be, where they routinely let the public know ahead of time, and you get a report when they come back as to what the delegation was supposed to do and its achievement, so on. So different. It's a disrespect for the public's right to know.
well,
Sorry,
okay, that is
Abraham, go
one.
ahead. Yeah.
That's okay. Well, I'm glad that you had that discussion there. Well, that is one that you can bring to your mind. But what the people on the ground are not feeling are the job losses, the many persons that are qualified that really cannot get into the industry, and the sustenance of the industry. Even let's say even 2 or 3 or probably 4 years ago, you would be complaining a lot about a lot of dark hotels by night, and that obviously would mean that there's not as much activity on the ground as it should have been. Now that is one. If we were to go to another one, or even 1 or 2 or 3, but for time's sake, I would go to education. Why is it that you're not even hearing an ounce out of things as it relates to the educational situation? Is it because that either a minister or persons in that field are the untouchables in the country? When it comes to that is one, the situation of lands, and as it relates to the agricultural um, decline. One thing that this may sound like a stray point, but I am not hearing anybody speaking to the issue of the monkeys, and I don't know if I'm out of my league to mention it without a solution. But can we have this discussed as it relates to how will the management of the monkey infestation be managed as it relates to curtailing the destruction of crops and stuff, and the habitat, because what I find that a lot of small farmers are crying out, especially in the country, that there's the monkeys, and then there's obviously theft. Apart from the big issue of a lot of the land being just taken up and not as we have been discussing over the last couple of weeks, and poor planning as it relates to prime agricultural land just being more or less just taken like that. Small farmers really are not being able to uh, play their trade in peace, simply because of having to juggle between what they're going to plant because of the raiding of the monkeys. I mean, am I the only one that is can relate to this, or everybody here lives in town? Everybody here lives in town. Just, just teasing you. No, nobody here can attest to what I'm saying. I'm not hearing the group.
I don't want to hog the show, but I was hoping somebody to respond. But that is a fairly frequent complaint from the farming community.
Yes, but nobody
Uh,
is. But the thing is that nobody is addressing it. You can't just look. People are saying, "Oh, don't kill the monkeys." The people that are saying that, whether here or overseas, are they going to kick? Are they going to some person in Miami or let's say Timbuktu, or whatever, are they going to take the monkeys? Government has to come up with a solution as it relates to the management of that, right?
in all fairness, I last heard last comment I can remember is that they were prepared to reevaluate and refinance. They used to pay a bounty for monkeys killed,
Mhm.
right? They're looking to refinance that and give a higher fee, and they were looking at a program to take care of to attack that problem. That's the last I heard. In all fairness,
Well, it has to be addressed and addressed with alacrity because small farmers in Barbados, especially in the countryside, whether it be St. Lucie, wherever you call countryside, in my opinion, are struggling, literally struggling as it relates to monkey raids and stuff. And I don't have to talk about water and other things. But where I'm going with this whole the topics of the day is when you dissect the language that is coming out of the Prime Minister's speech as it relates to her basket of goods. Now, this from a younger person's perspective, I mean, because you cannot really say anything to go by. Having listened to it, you cannot go away by saying that there's any measure of hope for tomorrow. There's any measure of immediate or long-term plans for anything at all. So essentially, where are you going? Because if you don't have a direction, if you don't have directions for immediate or long term, and all you are seeing or hearing is engagement with what I'm trying to say is um macro businesses and stuff. Now I do a lot of blogging and stuff. I say the people on the ground beyond facts, food, positions locally and diaspora can say without a shadow of doubt in a utilitarian scope, the greater good was met. The people will decide give up gab global speeches versus realities on the ground will not at the ballot of many who think it will be a ride to shore festival again. In other words, it's not going to be like last time where everybody say, you know what, I know a mayor or I know this body, and we're going to vote for them. Yeah, it's going to be that. People have to show the self-approve. You know, people have to show the self-approve. It's not going to be just this free for all. Independent, unconventional political analysts and social legal researchers, which is me, right? So I strongly believe that Barbados has to like come and see what I'm saying here. This is now here in Guyana. You have there was a panel. You can correct me. I think it was $100,000 or two. Was it $100,000 give out one off?
100,000, if I remember correctly,
And
because
that
it
for
worked.
the
It worked out about 1,000 Barbados dollars.
what it would do without mathematicians, right? So now this is the same country that gets 1.5 billion US dollars minimum. We are saying minimum per month, and this has nothing to do with gold and bauxite and all the other minerals and whatever it be. And yet the Aboriginals are crying out when the days come, living in utter squalor. And you're going to tell me that you're going to just have the optics of the camera spotting at the people lining up like if they were lining up in Queen's Park for goodies. Go up a little further, please. And now the comparison is here. Now you can see the same analogy, right? Where it's almost like a zombie presence, you know. So what has to bear here? And this is not trying to play the political game, but who is in charge has to really bring to the people and say, you know what, come tell us, come give us the people account of your stewardship. You've got to now tell the people, you know, what you have done, what you know have done with this 6 or 7 years or how much ever years you were in. And to be honest, I really, speaking honestly, you can't really see. And I'm not talking about who's who friend and this. No, we're not talking about who's friendships and that sort of stuff. We gone past that. We have to you have to tell the people now, ministry by ministry, because you have, is it 28 or 29, 28? McLean?
Say that again. You say that again. You asked if it's 28.
Is it 28 ministers or 29? Is it 20?
It's about 26 or 27. I'm not to be quite honest, I'm not sure. And right, I'm afraid to tell. I can't even start to name all of them. I know the key ones. But you see, you have ministers in and ministers of and ministers in and so on. So it's right. Difficult to say.
Right, but you see,
it's at least 26 though, as far as I remember. I'll check as you speak.
Right, but that being the case, you can just have 26 and rattle off the number 26. And the people, not me, not Miss McLean or anybody here in this panel, the people of Barbados cannot itemize by ministry and by standard of living, constituency by constituency, what is happening of upliftment and development on the ground, then you got something coming. There's no longer this gift of gab, because I always call it the gift of gab. Global speeches is not going to be the order of the day, and it's not going to be the right to town. Like how Santa Claus comes to town with his big bag. It's not going to be that. A Santa Claus raid. People have to see that the gift of gab on the ground is equating, and the gift of gab on the international stage is meeting the lives of the people. Those children that go to schools, many that can hardly eat, those parents that can scarcely provide, many of them. And what I have seen looking at the motorcade, not the motorcade, is it the walkthroughs with the water, is the abject poverty, the amount of abject poverty that is on the rise in Barbados. I'm not talking about if you look constituency by constituency, and you see and what really pains me is that you are talking about 26 politicians, 26, 27, how much it would be, and you are telling me that each of them, if you name them right now, one after the next, they can't refer to the situation constituency by constituency. So I'm going to end with, at least for now, with this, is that between Barbados, Guyana, St. Vincent, St. Lucia. Oh, I'm not talking about St. Lucia. Have you heard? I think it was 2 weeks ago or 3 that St. Lucia recently had what you call the minimum standard of, you call it we call it tonight the
The
term,
basic. You're talking
right,
about
the
the
basic, yes,
wage.
what you call it, minimum wage. Can you believe that? And that came through advocacy. So when people see people on Facebook and other medium and doing their advocacy and stuff, it ain't because that they're looking for friends, or they're looking or the pages, so they want noticement. It is that St. Lucia having a track star. The world knows that St. Lucia had a track star. The world didn't know that St. Lucia didn't have a basic minimum wage, besides some person going out there and making themselves miserable, or making the place miserable to have a minimum wage. So Barbados has to stop this nonsense about oh, I can't say anything because if I say anything, this body ain't gonna like me. And that, it's just nonsense. We have to be sold out to ourselves as a people first, not BLP, DLP, or a party. It's people first. The stalwarts that went before, whether it be the Adams and the Barrow and whoever it be, these people were stalwarts, and what do they call what's the other word they say? Not stalwarts, they call them statesmen, right? So I'm going to end with, let this figure come down again, Dave, please. Let this figure, or come up, sorry, no, let this figure that you see here, let this figure you see here, where people line it up and go back up again. Let this equate to life on the ground, and that people can, by constituency, say, okay, we can attest to X and Y, and we can say that this is what has been done ministry by ministry, and we can give a tick to this, we can give a tick to that, or we can give an X to this and an X to that. Go on.
Okay. Well, that's I think it's important, the points you're making, Abraham, and it fits in with the whole earlier discussion that at this point in time, I think if I try to summarize some of what we were discussing, Barbadians are, it is only reasonable that Barbadians can call on the government to share with us their achievements. I suppose, if you can call it so, Glenn, the beacons are aspirations. Um, are aspirations, but at this point in time, I mean, those were some of the very promises that were made that gave rise to electoral victory for the Barbados Day Party and the Mayor Motley administration. But at this point in time, Barbadians are, and it's no exaggeration. I think you mentioned abject poverty, Abraham, and there
Really?
is evidence that people's circumstances are slipping backwards. For some people, hardship. Life is becoming harder and harder, and we want
Max,
words.
I think Minister Kurt Henry admitted a few weeks ago that their subvention, their provision for assisted development has doubled or almost that
More,
this year.
yeah, that's
The
correct.
numbers, yeah. So there's on the ground, and if you look at what's happening, yeah, if you look what's happening on going back to school used to be a fairly steady thing happening. School people going back to school, but now back to school is a big item, not because of children and the parents eager to get them into school, but because of how much emphasis there is on assistance to people get going back to school. And that assistance charity really used to be very low key, quiet, off the box, all the publicity done. No, it's a national undertaking. And to me, BAJANS used to be very particular about, cautious about exposing themselves to people. Now it's I don't know if Maxine you've seen it and see that same phenomenon. The whole attitude towards it has changed, both in the reception of it and the administration of it. And the publicity, everybody now wants to have a picture in the paper giving something. To me that is the meaning of the country. And to me that represents the degradation of the country.
If I may,
Go ahead.
what you are actually saying there, and I can juxtapose this now, is Marie, you are actually juxtaposing what is actually happening in Guyana the same way, because I hate to see when Barbados speaks of its history. I don't have to be so specific, but there was a reason that Prime Minister Barrow had something called school meals provided. School meals was provided, so people will be lining up in a park to be, because the whole sight of it was very, in my opinion, very like feudal. So when you see extremely wealthy constructs happening both in Guyana and Barbados, and people making much ado of little, knowing that the majority of the people are of the low socioeconomic strata, and you are making a big fanfare of, oh, look what I'm giving them, oh, here, look, here, to me, I think what has to happen, especially, I'm not trying to veer Barbados off of Guyana. You must, because we are one Caribbean, and Guyana is now moved, in my opinion, now to the wealthiest Caribbean country, and if that mirroring of governance has visited Barbados, just I think, has it happened? Was it a couple of days ago? Was it when it was? Was it? You
mean
you're talking about the president? The president?
Right.
the visit?
Right. Was it not what it was showing there just now? Right. So
Yeah,
what
Friday night, I think at the opening of the conference, the president of Ghana addressed the conference.
What's there? So what I'm trying to say is that this whole mirroring of people see the glitz and glamour, but you have to see what is on the ground. I wouldn't go into much thing, but I've been to Ghana more than once. And you have to understand that what people face on the ground is not matching. It's just what the people of Barbados are facing on the ground is not matching the gift of gab that that is being spoken of. It is like, if I am your parent, Maxine, I am telling people, oh, she's full, man. Her belly full, man. And when you check, the hungry and have nothing to eat and this and that and the third, and so we can't.
But in all fairness, I think there's a realization among Barbadians that life is not what is portrayed to be at a certain level. That the people are suffering. There's a recognition, and people reflect on it and complain about it and seek to do something. So it's not that we are immune to it, ignorant of it. It's happening. People recognize it. Like I tell you, even the minister responsible for social empowerment has admitted that numbers. If you talk to the Salvation Army, if you talk to the Homeless Society, all those are criteria that represents how the level of poverty or deprivation in society. So
And it
there
is for
is
this,
some cognizance of that.
right, and it is for this very reason that the Public Accounts Committee ought to be made bipartisan, audited in a satisfactory manner, that the public of Barbados can see where the millions and the collaborative billions are going. It cannot be sufficient that people are on the ground can scarcely live week to week, but millions are being spent and targeted into avenues that the mere man on the ground who can scarcely even afford to hire a lawyer, far less know where they can get their next meal from tomorrow versus next week. But you are having a situation where you have an opposition leader who cannot, with satisfactory, bring to the public of Barbados and say, well, okay, we can see where World Cup money went. We can see, and down to the last cent, we can see where X and Y and this cannot be in this. We cannot tolerate this as a country, and we can't continue to tolerate it as a Caribbean as a whole, right? And it's not about who like who and this. We going past that. Our ancestors did not die and suffer the way they suffered for us.
But let me assure you that you're pushing an open door where this, at least where this program is concerned. Those very same sentiments, you had Mr. Thorne on speaking. So we are very much aware that we are our part of our programming is to deal and expose those issues time and time again. And support those who are seeking it. So you know, we are not as laid back as you might think.
Oh, no.
I don't think that's the perception, but I just want quickly, because I realized that we are like 5 minutes before 10 o'clock, and there was an issue which I was asked to clarify, and I think it had to do with an internal audit department. I don't know if Dave can take us back to that question. The question was whether or not it was that the note was sent to me is whether or not it is true that government had set up or was planning to set up an internal audit department. Now, what I will read, because I did check and I know I'd heard about it, and it says here, this is August 20th, 2022, an internal audit department, IAD, is being established by government to ensure that some of the issues highlighted in the 2021 Auditor General report will never recur. The new department is expected to be in place within the next fiscal year, 2023 to 2024. Well, let me say this. In essence, the Auditor General functions pretty much as an internal audit to some extent of the government and not necessarily a particular department, because government also has to hire external auditors for some aspects of its operations, like statutory corporations, etc., whatever. But let me say this. Before you set up a second department, why is it that the recommendations made over and over again to revisit the hiring practices and the positions identified in terms of in the Auditor General's office to better equip that office to function? In other words, you have a department that has been identified as weak, and the Auditor General makes this point over and over again. Part of the thing about revisiting how to compensation so that you can attract and retain the right kinds of persons. So you're not dealing with that, but then you're going to create some other entity and further, I suppose, deprive the Auditor General's office of the requisite resources that it is calling for. It is not intended, Picard, and so this is why I would have to correct. It's not from what was described, and I have to go back and see what has happened.
Oh, sorry.
It is not intended to bypass. It is intended to ensure that, well, from what they said, to make sure that what happened didn't occur. In essence, what you're saying is that you want to have the capacity, and you don't need a department to do that. What you should do is within agencies, ministries, identify persons who function as internal auditors, so that within an agency, and remember the Auditor General deals with statutory corporations as well. So, for example, if you take the national insurance, well, that's what is isn't a department anymore because it is not a statutory entity. That the national insurance, NISS as it is, that they have a proper internal audit department as an example. That's required because they control billions of dollars. And you can do that. Something like the Barbados Water Authority should have, so that not that you have an agency trying to go to these people, because then by nature of the by nature of its title, it is not internal audit in its strictest sense. So I would have to go and research it to see what if anything has happened beyond the promise. And in fact, my suggestion is that you probably deploy those resources in a different way to address on an ongoing basis what is happening in the agencies, and then allow the Auditor General to function. To audit, exactly.
Yeah,
and so in other words, when the Auditor General flags something, in fact, before he gets to flag, the proper procedures, etc., that are to be followed are monitored by this internal audit personnel, and they would then make sure that the agency is operating according to proper standard. Ferdy, I'm going to hand over to you as we approach in the end. You know, you know how to end this better than me, so.
Well, you've done a good job, Maxine. You've done a good job. That's why you saw me disappear a little bit. I just wanted to come out of the environment and just watch. You've done a marvelous job tonight. I can report. I can report well. I can report well.
I will not get into trouble with Marcia then.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. But just let me say this as we bring the program down to its final moments. I listened to. I didn't listen. I observed a couple of comments made by Mr. Ali while he was here, and he treated to how Barbados, how we are now on the international, environment. We know Barbados is not on the international environment. Mia Motley is. Mia Motley is on the international environment. Mia Motley deals with the matters of climate change on the international sector. She does not speak for Barbados on the international sector at all. I've listened to her speeches one after the other in every single environment virtually that she has spoken, and she really talks about the desperate needs of the things that are happening in Barbados. Her languaging does not reflect what's going on the ground in Barbados. Her presentation at the UN does not reflect what is happening on the ground in Barbados. And unfortunately, she seems to pivot everything that's happening, if she ever does speak to them, to climate change. And
but very quickly, let me also say very quickly, Barbados's position and recognition in respect to its lobbying on issues related to climate change did not start in 2018. You have somebody like Professor Leonard Nurse, who would have been part of a group that won a Nobel Prize. I can't remember how many years ago. So I'm just simply saying that when it comes to climate change and sustainable development, Barbados has been out there. So proceed.
Yeah, but Barbados may have been out there, but she's taken that role now to such a different level that she's seen as a spokesman for the international community on climate change. And Barbados, I don't know that Barbados is benefiting from that. I'm particularly referencing what Mr. Ali said relative to that, because I don't see any presentation she makes on the international arena that gives any view of what is happening in Barbados. It doesn't treat to it. She talks about climate change, and that's about the biggest subject she talks about. So I really threw his observation.
On that score, Ferdy, on that score, I just like to interject that Barbados has been on the international team from the time we invented rum and started to produce sugar.
Yes,
Barbados
exactly.
has in the 17th century, but in the 18th century, Barbados was described as the first jewel in the crown of England.
Yes.
Produced more money for England, all the other colonies put together. Barbados was the shopping capital of the Caribbean. Anything you got in Rome or Greece or London or you could get in Barbados. The people came here to shop. So Barbados, and we have all of them got free kids. And then all people go abroad and do this. So we've been on the national forever. So I don't fall for that cheap talk.
Yeah, no, and you see really the fact is that we came to that level, Glenn, because of what we delivered and what we
Of
produced,
course, for Jews,
not
yes.
because somebody was out on the international circuit
No.
mouthing foolishness. Sorry, don't let me say
But
foolishness.
if that was
Mouthing,
so, we should be getting, we should
no.
be the place should be breaking down with tourists
Oh, you mean
because of the
I
event. So
mean,
not just wishful thinking, that is egotistical
we're
kind
seeing
of
no.
personality thing. Don't fall for that.
No,
Drivel.
we're seeing no, thank you, Maxine. I was just waiting to get you to confirm that. Um, we're not seeing any, this is the real point I want to make. We're not seeing any ramifications, any effect, any impact from all of that international travel and lip service. We're
No.
not seeing it. It's not happening. And that's why I really pay no attention to what Mr. Ali said where that is concerned. And I don't have the time to go any further. I just want to say thank you to all of you that have contributed to the program tonight. Wow, it's been packed from the word give and go. And boy, I tell you, you all should see, watch. I can just give you a quick look. You all should see the number of papers that I am here writing on
Uh,
my
for
notes.
for if I can have one word before, and I please indulge me.
Yeah,
I thought it was
I
I
will
thought it was
indulge you.
I thought it was amazing that both President Ali could speak and the Prime Minister spoke at length, and nobody mentioned the Black Belly Sheep. Not a
Or the bill,
word with the
or the
Black
bill.
Belly Sheep program.
They didn't mention
Not
anything
a
about the
word
bill
with the
either.
houses. Huh?
Glenn, I have asked repeatedly, and I will ask again, but I have the answer because I spoke to a Guyanese friend who went home recently.
Uh,
Asked for photographs
uh,
or video of this successful project. The guy said to me, "Do not wait for them. The sheep have been eaten or stolen. One or two might have died, but the lamb was very well received." But
but
on a serious note, very quickly though, one of the concerns, and I need to investigate this more. I saw an article, I'm not sure if it was on a chat or if it was, but farmers are complaining about having access
that's
to
right.
the
Yeah.
genetics and so on, that they've taken the sheep and now they're trying to have like a breeding
But
program.
but
So we have to
that
go to the stomachs of people to recover our sheep. And
the
anyway,
leader of that program, Dr. McLean, has been defended stoutly.
Yes,
The big
yes, he's
success.
I've
defending
asked
that.
my namesake
But
for these pictures.
he has
I've called on
vested
him directly.
but he has vested interest to
But he
say
carries
so.
my name, so he has to make sure he does right by this name of mine.
Well,
Incredible.
I just want all of you to know that there is a standing invitation for government to come here on the Marcia Week
True,
show and
true,
answer
true, true.
questions. It is a standing invitation. We are open to it, just like the leader of the opposition. We're open to him coming and engaging the people. We are open to the government. And if they really had any intestinal fortitude, you see, they like to operate where there is nobody that can critique them firmly. I was just trying to remember it. Marcy, I know you've done a little bit of theology, but there's a verse in the scripture that talks about how a story
Maxine.
sounds
Oh,
good.
you met Marcia.
Maxine, no, I mean you. I mean you.
Marcia is my
Maxine,
sister.
Maxine, there's a verse in the scripture that talks something about how something sounds good until you hear the other side or something like that. I have to look up and find it.
And find the
You know,
exact.
yeah, and find the
I
exact
I
verse.
I
I will look it up.
I
You know
can
it?
give you a quote. No, I
You know
don't.
it,
I can
Glenn?
give you
Oh,
I can give you a biblical one.
give me
Fret
one.
not
Give me one.
fret not yourself because of evildoers,
Doors.
neither be thou envious against the worker of iniquity.
I can also give you another one. When the righteous rule, the people rejoice. When the evil rule, they're groan. I will just leave you with that one. All right. But listen, thank you, Rose. Thank you so much. My goodness, I can't keep up. I am glad that this show is recorded on YouTube because I can go back and watch it a few times and stop it and make my notes. But thank you so much. You have been so poignant and on the button. Glenn, your examination of the
But
speech,
I'm 31 minutes quickly. It won't take me long.
30
On
seconds.
on Friday, in the Friday newspaper, there is an ad placed for a school safety officer, a temporary post. and a temporary post for a school safety
Wha-
officer.
wha- One school officers.
One. And there are 21 public secondary
God.
schools and 74 public primary schools. This
Amazing.
started off with the promise for 2018 that they
Enlarge
were
it,
going
Dave.
to have school safety officers, and we learned from that address to the nation by the Minister of Education that they started off with 9, now there are 7. And I am asking the question or making the comment, they can be for real. They're not taking violence in schools seriously. We have again 21 public primary secondary schools and 74 public primary schools. And
95 schools. Right?
96.
And they are asking for a temporary school. The Ministry of Education, Technological and Vocational Training requires a school safety officer temporary post, and the ad is to be submitted, I think, by the closing date is the 11th,
What is the salary?
November.
What is the salary like?
The salary, the salary scale is
16.
pull it up there for me.
It's there.
Okay.
48,782. It goes up to 61,644. So it's from 48.
Yeah, that's between $4,000 and $5,000 a month. Thing.
Yes.
Right.
And can they be for real? That is accountability that we are requesting from them.
Okay.
Well, we are going
And
to talk
it is
more.
temporary.
We're going to talk more about this tomorrow night.
I want to say, Caswell, I hope that jogged your memory.
Yes.
I think today is Caswell's.
Yes.
I think he shares a birthday, or my son shares the same birthday. David, his
What?
20th.
Yes, and once we say that, Maxine, the show done. Right, nothing else after this, guys.
Happy birthday, Caswell.
We are going
Happy
to honor
birthday,
and
Caswell.
respect
Happy-
Mr.
happy.
Caswell Franklin. Caswell from the entire team, not only the team here tonight, but the entire team. that
And for
comes
him
on
to
with
say
us.
happy birthday. And
No, but you know, if I go and do that, no, I can go with the happy birthday to you. You belong to the zoo, and I'm not going to engage. I'm not going to engage that one. But you know, I think it would be nice if we all sang it. I can raise the note. All right, yeah, I hear Glenn clear his voice already.
Yeah.
Ready, right? So Rose, you ready? Because I know you. I know
Yes,
you can
yes.
sing. All right. So on the count to 3, 1, 2, 3. Happy
Happy
birthday
birthday to you.
Happy
Happy birthday to
to you. Happy
Happy
birthday,
birthday,
dear
dear
Caswell.
Happy birthday
to
to you.
I didn't even know Glenn had a bass voice.
Right, don't forget, I was Calypso King. I retired
Oh,
Calypso
but
King. Don't forget.
That's true.
Give my props.
that's right.
Well, we're all wishing you a happy birthday, Caswell, and thank you for sharing with me the good news from your examination, which came out positive.
Yes.
Happy to hear that. And we
Great.
certainly miss you. And as you said, we're looking forward to you joining us. You know you're welcome anytime. It would be lovely to see you tomorrow night. Rose, I was just looking back here quickly, but I have the room for you tomorrow night. Would love you to come on and finish that. Nigel, I know you're going to be joining me tomorrow night as well. And we're going to have another special guest. Abraham, you may want to watch the show tomorrow night. We have a very, very, very special guest. on the show tomorrow night, and I have observed some of his presentations and so on, and he's going to be very volatile. I can tell you that. Yeah,
Wow.
so we're looking forward to it, and I'll be in touch with a couple others of you to just jump in with us tomorrow night. I've just loved the way the shows have flowed over the last couple of times. I thank Marcia for having the confidence and trust in her team to make sure that everything keeps flowing so well in her absence. It must be really comfortable and encouraging for her to know that. And we want to thank you, Marcia, whenever you watch the show, for entrusting us with this great opportunity, because she's like 5 hours or 6 hours ahead of us wherever she is.
Right.
So
Don't forget Dave. Don't forget Dave. Don't forget
oh,
Dave.
yes, let me tell you, I cannot talk about Dave enough. You know, Dave, my goodness, Dave has done a magnificent job over the past several days. Absolutely. So, Dave, we give you kudos. And yeah, here he comes with our favorite closing song. All right. So,
Good night,
Dave,
everybody.
over to you. Good night, Glenn. Good night.
Good night, everybody. See y'all.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Good night. Good night.
Good night, Maxine. And good night, loyal opposition.
I'm not interested in prosecuting the body. Tell me this already. I want money.
Say what?
Money.
Yo!
Money.
Yo!
I want money.
Yeah, she really said that for you?
Money. I'm not interested in prosecuting the body. I want money.
Whoa!
Money.
Whoa!
Money. Money.
Yo!
Money.
You hear that?
Money.
She want money, yeah?
I want money. I want money.
You hear that? She want money, yeah?
I'm not interested in prosecuting the body. Tell me this already. I want money. I want money.
Boy, she only care about the money. Bye, girl. Bye.
That maths nor English. Pretending to be good. Pretending to be good. Just pretending to be good. Pretending to be good. I just pretending to care about people. 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 Pretending. And I'm pretending to be good at maths nor English. I just pretending to care about people. And I'm pretending to be good at maths nor English. I just pretending to care about people. I'm pretending to be good. And I'm pretending to be good at maths nor English. I just pretending to care about people. And I'm pretending to be good at maths nor English. I just pretending to care about people.
Oh, he knows the one I'm waiting for. He knows the one I'm waiting for. Come on, Dave. That one that we can't close without it. We got to have that one. We got to have that one. I know you can pull it.
Dancers, come forward. Walk out. This one I got worldwide.
Just days after former government backbencher Ralph Thorne crossed the floor, he's taken the oath of office as leader of the opposition.
Cross the floor, let me do it some more like Ralph Thorne. Ralph Thorne. On the other side. Cross the floor. Cross the floor. Cross the floor, let me do it some more like Ralph Thorne. Wait there. Ralph Thorne. Dancing, come back again. Our turn is the latest trend. Everybody know link up my friend. This one designed to be.
And more will be left over.
Dancing, come back again. Our turn is the latest.
Are these trips so important?
Link up my friend. This one designed to be living out.
Yes, I'm for real, member. I am for real. Don't let me talk out your business. Don't let me talk out your business. All right.
And I can't decide, so I'm moving with the die. Cause I'm ready to mash up the body. Oh gosh, I can mash up the body. So let me do this now. Cause I'm ready to mash up the body. Oh gosh, I can mash up the body. Yes. So let me go now. Cross the floor. Cross the floor. Cross the floor. Let me do it some more like Ralph Thorne. Ralph Thorne. On the other side. Cross the floor.
There has to be some order here.
Cross the floor. Let me do it some more like Ralph.
The Minister of Finance is not party to this present transaction, Your Honor. Ask him to keep quiet, please.
Everybody know deal with
And I say to you further, Mr. Speaker, that my conscience, my location here is related to my conscience. I said it last year. It is well with my soul.
Take a wine on the left side, and I can't decide, so I'm moving really tight, moving really tight. Take a wine on the right side, take a wine on the left side, and I can't decide, so I'm moving really tight. 'Cause I'm ready to mash up the body. Oh gosh, I can mash up the body. So let me do this now. 'Cause I'm ready to mash up the body. Oh gosh, I can mash up the body. Yeah, and let me go now. Cross the floor, cross the floor, cross the floor. Let me do it some more like Ralph Torn, Ralph Torn. On the other side, cross the floor, cross the floor, cross the floor. Let me do it some more like Ralph Torn, Ralph Torn.
That is my man. So whether he cross or in cross, he will always be there for us.
I came to a point where I had to take the decision that if my philosophical and political views do not accord with those of government in terms of its legislation, in terms of its policy, the relationship becomes untenable.
Okay, good night.
Good night,
Amen.
everybody.
Good night, everyone. God bless.
Good night. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Rest well, everybody. Night,
Will
night.
do.